The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Kosei Fujita, listening, Keepin It Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy, Donovan, and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the Ace of Podcast on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we'll discuss the conclusion of the New Japan Soul Tour and cover all latest news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Please support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network and Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You also get all the network's podcasts over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Chop Tea store, chop-tees.com/KI Strong Style. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style merchandise. There's free shipping on every order and 10% off your first order. That's chop-tees.com/KI Strong Style. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. And we are streaming live right now on patreon.com/KI Strong Style for IWGP subscribers. If you want to watch our show live or listen without ads, you can sign up at patreon.com/KI Strong Style. Young boy, next weekend we will be in Texas for AEW's All In Texas. Gonna get to see Omega Okada live along with what looks to be a pretty great card. You excited for next weekend?
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to get out of town and hang out. I actually, we've been to Dallas Fort Worth before. You've met my family, so I've got relatives out there already. So yeah, I'm getting out there early, gonna see them. The cool thing is we have a lot of people going from the Social Suplex Podcast Network, like Trish and Sarah are gonna be there. The Tunnel Talk crew is gonna be there. One Nation Radio. I know that Floyd's going. I don't know if Austin's going, but
yeah, I think he is.
Okay, so All Things Elite is gonna be there as well. That's a lot of representation from just our group of podcasters and writers alone, not to mention all the other, people in the industry that we are friends with or connected with and that sort of thing. So it's really cool. At the same time, I'm a little like, I don't know if you know this about me or if you picked up on this about me, Jeremy, but like I'm a planner. I kind of need to know what we're fucking doing.
You're a planner?
And the fact of the matter is, like, it's hard to coordinate with that many different people. So it's like, I know a couple things we are for sure doing. You know what I mean? It's like, we're going to go to All In. So I know that. I know on Saturday we're going to All In for sure.
Yes.
But that's about all I'm really for sure about. We talked about some different ideas and stuff, but I don't know. Everything's kind of up in the air.
Yeah, well, we're definitely going to do some kind of, listener meetup after the show. I know AEW's, they're having an after party close by the venue. It sounds like we're just going to, find a spot over there and, we'll kind of post our location.
But that's not real. Like if we're showing up at their after, have you seen where the after party is?
That Texas Live place or whatever.
Yeah, but Texas Live isn't like a place.
Isn't it like a big sports bar thing?
It's a sports complex.
Gotcha.
Okay. You know what? When you go to Amalie?
Yeah.
You know where the giant lightning logo, like the lightning statue?
Yeah.
Okay, the bolt. And then there's all that stuff in that it's like a giant space, and then there's all those bars and stuff around it.
Yeah.
It's like that, but bigger. It's closer to like Sparkman Wharf.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it's like when they say it's at Texas Live, it would be like us being like, we're having an after party at Sparkman Wharf. It's not one place. It's
Gotcha.
a giant conglomerate of a bunch of different places. And it's actually the space in between. Because I did my research because I was looking it up, and it was like it's in between Global Life Field and what's Jerry World called?
Oh, AT&T Stadium.
Yeah, because I think they're in the same exact location, and this complex is in between them, and it's a ton of different bars and stuff like that. So it's like it's a huge.
You're breaking up pretty bad for me right now.
Are we good?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay, I figured if I jumped out and jumped back in, that might be better.
Yeah, but essentially you're saying, this is a huge place, so we gotta have to find a spot within this huge place for the meetup.
I mean, if we want to even do the after party with them, I don't know what that all entails. I don't know if it's going to be janky or high end, or if it's like just a way to get the marks to come spend more money to take photos. I really don't know what it is. When we did scout a location that I thought looked pretty awesome, that had like it's a brewery and pizza place.
Yeah.
And they got a huge outdoor. We might still do that, but I'm assuming most people are going to want to go to that after party. The other thing I was thinking is like, we could do a meetup that was not on the day of the show, some other time during that weekend. But I don't know. I mean, it would be nice not having to have the responsibility to post something and say hello to everybody. It is great when people come to those. And I mean, we might still have one, and it is really, really cool. But I know for me, being antisocial, I'm always like, fuck, so many people.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of listeners are going to be going there. So stay tuned on the Discord. We'll post more detail outs, what we're doing. There's a lot of stuff going on in the week. There's Collision Thursday night. Swerve has a concert on Friday night. There's Ring of Honor on Friday night. House of Glory also think it's on Friday.
He's running against Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, that Ring of Honor card isn't necessarily one that I would go out of my way to see, but the main event looks so good between Bandito and Takeshi. You're kind of like, man, I would like to be in the building for that at least, but you can't even get tickets. I mean, I'm pretty sure if we made a call, we could get let in the building probably, but I don't know. Even this one's a tough ticket because the only way you get those tickets is if you had a VIP package and there's no reselling and it has to be under your name. So
yeah.
That's it. Like if you go online, you try to see if there's any resales. There's no resales at all allowed. So we're like, fuck, can't get in the show. I mean, maybe someone, again, I think we could place the call and get let in the back door, but I don't think I think we'd have to stay backstage. I don't even think we'd be able to take a seat out in the, in the gamer arena.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll figure it all out. We still got time. And so, yeah, if you see us out there, come say hi. Stay tuned to the Discord. We'll post more details on where we're at, what we're doing.
I think we had the idea, too, to do the stockyards one night was one idea.
Yeah, I threw that idea out. I've been to the stockyards before. Really cool place. They usually have like a rodeo gimmick out there as well. So, yeah, I think Thursday night there is a rodeo kind of championship deal. That might be fun to go to as well. So we'll be out there somewhere.
The All-In show looks very good. I am excited, but I'm more excited to, get to see everybody, hang out, that sort of thing. It'll be great. And looking forward to it.
Yeah, should be a lot of fun. And so you're probably noticing that this episode is coming out a little bit early. So we are recording and streaming here on Sunday evening so that this pod will be hitting your feed on Monday. We get prepared to head out to Texas. So you'll get your ad-free version on the Patreon, actually probably tonight, and then ad version up on Monday, and then for you live stream viewers, the video will be up on the Patreon to watch the video version of the show.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of like a pretty long weekend, and I took Monday off as well. So like literally I'm off every day this coming week except for Tuesday. I work one day, and then I've been off since Friday, and Thursday the market's closed early. So like this is a pretty extended period of time. But yeah, I took that Monday off, and I was like, damn, if I'm recording and then working the next day and then flying out, you know, my wife's gonna not like that. It's not really fair. So I was like, damn, maybe we can record on a Sunday, kind of knock this shit out, and kind of go from there. Yeah. So thank you, Jeremy, for moving your schedule around for us to do this. And
yeah, you're on that reverse Fred Rosser.
Yeah, lots of days off, most days off. I do need to find time this week to record the next episode of Tanahashi Ace of the Universe. Hopefully I can get that out to you before we head out to Texas, because unlike this week where I'm taking many days off, I have to make sure that we take no weeks off, because there's I've got like 28 episodes we got to do. There's only so many weeks left in the year before Tanahashi, you know, takes that stroll down the aisle in the fucking Tokyo Dome. So it's like, we gotta knock it out, you know?
Yeah. I've also started doing the research for my next Dominion deep dive, which will be reviewing Bad Luck Fale versus Shinsuke Nakamura for the IC title. So I'm pretty much almost done with my research and the format for that. I'm going to try to maybe record that before we head out. It might be after we get back, but Dominion deep dive will be up and running again, along with Tanahashi Ace of the Universe. So you're about to get 2 bonus audios on that $5 grade 1 tier.
Nice. You know what we really need to do?
But
we need to isolate all of the final countdown audio and chop that shit up into its own collection
and put it up there.
But I know there's a couple matches that weren't available at the time that we never did review that are now currently available on New Japan World. So it's like, before, you know, we need to also figure out what those were and then get back around to, I think it's just 2 of them.
Yeah, it was like 2 that we missed. Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure what we could do is like also pull out all of the audio on the other Super Juniors since then and just conglomerate that shit and post it. It wouldn't be too much work, but I know that there's someone in the Discord was asking about us having done that series and, you know, wanting to check it out. And I'm like, yeah, that would be pretty great value to be able to like post that shit in there as well. So, but yeah, I've been getting really, really good feedback on Tanahashi Ace of the Universe. A lot more research and work than I realized it might be. But yeah, I'm up to 2006 in terms of the research portion, that's the hardest part. Now I just got to record it all and watch some matches. So yeah.
Nice. Well, before we jump into New Japan Soul, June is over, so we got to do the June Wrestler of the Month and Match of the Month.
I actually told myself today, I was like, I know that it's the end of the month. We need to do this. And then today just got away from me. I didn't look at your notes. And now that you're saying, I'm like, oh shit, I guess we do need to talk about that. But, oh man. Yeah. This is a tough, okay. I think the Wrestler of the Month, we know who that is.
Yeah, that is the former IWGP World Champion, Hirooki Goto.
And with that being the case, I mean, he defended against Zack unsuccessfully this month, but he also had a defense against Hushingo.
Yep, at Dominion.
And was that this month as well?
Yeah, those are both in June.
Okay. So yeah, I would give that to Goto for just kind of showing out and everything like that. In terms of the match of the month, man, it's really tough because you've got Goto and Zack Sabre Jr. that just knocked it out of the park, but you've also got Desperado and Jun Kasai. I got to tell you, I think I'm leaning Desperado, Jun Kasai personally.
So was I. Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah, I watched that match. I was really blown away by both of these matches, honestly. You know, say what you will. We were pretty critical about the booking direction, and I take none of it back. I feel exactly the same way, but that match with Goto and Zack was pretty remarkable. And say what you will about Zach and the shortcomings of his title run last year, but the quality of the matches was never in question. And bro, like I was watching that match and I was like, man, he's a fucking master. This guy, Zack Sabre Jr. He's so good.
That whole match was just so good.
And then, he cut this post-match promo recently talking about how, kind of leaning into a leaner, kind of more classic Zack Sabre Jr.-esque sort of presence, talking about like, I don't give a fuck about being the hero of this company, which is like the total opposite of what you've been seeing from someone like, say, Gabe Kidd talking about like being the defender and, I bleed this lion mark, blah, blah. I don't give a fuck about exactly. I don't give a fuck about the lion mark. And that's great. I think that's what we kind of need out of in my personal opinion, I think all of the top foreigners ever historically in the history of New Japan have all been dicks.
Yeah, kind of leaning into that, invader type of character, this foreigner coming in and stealing the bell, being a top star and kind of drawing that heat by being that outside entity.
And if they weren't dicks, then they were assholes. One or the other. You really got to pick a lane, but Zach's not an asshole, but he is a dick, so you got that.
Yeah. So we'll go for Despi versus Jun Kasai for the June match of the month. And Desperado Jun Kasai was fucking phenomenal. If you guys haven't seen that, I know most of you probably have, but if you haven't seen that, you got to find a way. You got to watch that. Just really, 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 really great. I'll be honest with you, Jeremy, though. I liked the 2022 Despi Doki. Taka Taichi Despi Mania. Yeah.
The first singles main event after it was their second singles match.
The one where he got his jaw broke.
No, that's the first one. That's the one.
2019
that was the
one.
First
Yes.
match. Yeah. And then I like the second one the best personally. That one's a little bit more on we're bringing out the knives and the forks and, crazy shit like that. But this one was, oh man, it was spectacular. They're all really, really, really top notch. So, I almost kind of feel bad that they're saying they're never going to wrestle again. I'm almost like, maybe you should.
Run it back one more time.
Bring this violence to the dome. Let's fucking run it back,
Oh man, let's put that on primetime TV, Wrestle Kingdom 20.
Yeah, we'll have Aaron Wolf come out, and then we'll have Jun Kasai come out, and they'll bleed. It's great.
Oh man. So that's G1 Wrestle of the Month, Match of the Month, and let's jump into the conclusion here of New Japan Soul. So we had the last two shows of the tour, Friday and today. So night 8 was Friday, July 4th. From the Tokyo Budokan. And actually, before we jump into that, there's one thing I wanted to ask you before we could get on the reviews. So you have made a Twitter after 8 years of doing the show. You're randomly have your own Twitter account now. What's going on there?
I just wanted to message a few individuals privately that I didn't know how to get a hold of them other than through Twitter. So I just figured I'd make a Twitter, but I'll be honest with you, Jeremy, I have zero intentions to do anything with this. Like, if you think I'm going to be shooting out star ratings and hot takes and retweeting stuff, no. I did, I spruced it up a little bit just so that some people might have got a little weirded out because they didn't know what the fuck it was.
Yeah, well, people are like, is this a real Josh? Like,
right. So I added I added a photo today and like added a description so people know that it is in fact fucking me. But if that shit disappears in like 3 weeks, do not be surprised. I have no intentions I don't even know really very many people on Twitter outside. Like, we follow accounts and I don't know those people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like but here's the thing too. I get tired of having to if I do need to reach out to an individual and I have to reach out to them from our shared Twitter account, and then I have to specify that it is I, in fact, talking and not you.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and then you're going to read my shit. And what if I say some embarrassing
shit? What if you're burying me?
I don't like that accountability. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to be, a maverick and be able to do whatever the fuck I want without the oversight of Jeremy. So
you want to be a Lone Star outlaw?
Yeah, I'm doing some mud show outlaw, mud show bullshit. No, but yeah, I just wanted to message a couple people directly. And that was really it. And I did that and it's done. And I probably don't really have much use for the fucking, for because I don't know what I can do with it different that we don't do with, the Keepin It Strong Style one already. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
That's about it. Yeah, I know people got freaked out, but like, don't be freaked out. I do whatever the fuck I want, and it might go away.
Nice. All right, so New Japan Soul Night 8, Friday, July 4th is from the Tokyo Budokan. Had an attendance of 1,377. So really down from last year. Last year was 2,423, and that was that Despi Doki title match where Doki pulled the upset and defeated Desperado for the title. Also, that's the hometown of Naito and Bushi, and they had a tag team match on the evening as well. So that last year's show drew really well. This year, not so much.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. It is a disappointing number, but I will tell you, we're watching this live in the in the Discord in the New Japan Pro Wrestling Spoiler Zone. What is that? What New Japan Spoiler Zone or whatever?
Yeah,
that's where people will go on our Discord and you can chat in real time with people that are watching it or whatever. Anyways, I was eyeballing it and I was like, just kind of doing the math in my head about what the capacity of that building is and what I was seeing. And I was like, I think they got approximately 1,300 people in that building. And I didn't know what the actual count was. And then like a few minutes later, someone's like, they just announced 1377. I was like, holy shit, that's an incredible eyeball. Like I never get attendances right. I was so proud of myself, man.
Yeah, I'm horrible at trying to estimate attendances. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe there was like 5,000 people there. I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you, like looking in the building, it didn't look like that. It looked like, I don't know, like 800, but you have to look at the capacity of the building and then kind of subtract. And I was like, yeah, they're probably like 1,300 ish. I was about right, which is pretty impressive for me, but not impressive for New Japan. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, the show kicked off. We had Tetsuya Matsumoto and Zane J wrestling to another 10-minute time limit draw. Any thoughts on these guys that we haven't really mentioned last week based off of this night's match?
Well, I think we see this trend happen pretty regularly when it comes to new debuting young lions, where yes, they're going through the whole neither one can beat the other one within the allotted time frame. We're setting up a generational rivalry. We're going to go to 10-minute time limit draws. That's fine, whatever. But where there's nuance is where you start to see the different wrinkles. You get the feeling that just judging by the layout of these matches that they're being told to go out there and try and do different things. They're giving a particular structure or task, things that they need to work on or get over,
body part,
and that sort of thing. Exactly. So like when they first, and I don't have any inside information. I've never talked to a worker and been like, hey, what's the instruction? What's the protocol for young lions? But you'll notice on the first tour, almost always very, very heavy into the, mat-based, like hardcore grappling, very, very, very fiery. And it's like, you probably imagine that they're being told to just go out there and showcase what they're doing in terms of like the mat chain grappling, but with a lot of like fire behind it, go out there and strike each other really hard, fire up the crowd, and then start trading, body slams and forearms and Boston crabs and near finishes, that sort of thing. As time goes on, they start to, allow them to do different things and kind of work different wrinkles into the matches. And that's what I think we're already starting to see with these guys just a little bit. They didn't debut that long ago, and already, we're starting to see a little bit of a 5 o'clock shadow, the hair starting to come in, and these guys are finding their way. So I think, Matsumoto and Zane J, I think they're both really good for, what's expected from a young line at this phase. From what I'm seeing, just eyeball test, I think they're doing really well.
Yeah, I think both guys are showing a lot of fire. I feel like Zane J is putting on some really nice size. I really like his fire and intensity, and I think I'm starting to see, you can see that Zane J has a little bit more experience than Matsumoto in parts of the matches. I feel like he kind of is almost leading a little bit. I feel like there are certain points where you can kind of tell where Matsumoto's trying to figure out like what to do next, and not like in a working way of like, it's more of like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do next kind of way. And Zane J is kind of...
I've been there. Zane J like clearly understands match structure. He knows some of the like more small nuances. He's probably going to progress a little faster just because he's been wrestling for a lot longer. Where I think Matsumoto is superior to him right now is just his grappling acumen, because he actually does come from a real... And I don't, not to say Zane J does, and I don't know Zane J's background like that, but Matsumoto was an actual like
amateur wrestler,
and that translates. You can really tell that. So
yeah. So then, following that, we had Daiki Nagai and Katsuya Murashima teaming up to defeat Masatora Yasuda and Shoma Kato in 9 minutes and 18 seconds. So big win here for the team of Nagai and Murashima. Nagai getting the Boston Crab submission over Yasuda. So these crop young lions, fighting for their shine. We'll talk about some interesting developments with Daiki Nagai on the following night. But these guys also trying to prove that they're ready for excursion.
Yeah, I think the more interesting talking points are definitely going to come from today's show as opposed to the 4th of July show. But good showing from all of these guys. I don't, it's always a crapshoot when you're talking about what is the projection of where you see all these different young developing guys, where they're going to be. If I had to guess, this is just me personally, I don't see, I see a lot of talent, but I don't see a lot of star potential out of this particular crop unless some things change. And the one who has the most size is Shoma Kato. Or I'm sorry, Murashima. I always get those two confused. Murashima has the ability most likely to bulk up and become a bruiser and maybe do something with that. But I think Shoma Kato doesn't necessarily have like a superstar look that's going to propel him to the top of the card necessarily. And then, Daiki Nagai is very compelling in terms of his, his aura and his charisma, but he's also probably gonna be a junior, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if what we're looking for is like the next like ace level or like main eventer, I think like Daiki Nagai is gonna kind of have to go through that junior rank to headline shows.
Yeah, and we already see that even being a junior, there is kind of a ceiling put on you. You look at top guys like Hiromu and Desperado, who should just be bigger stars, but kind of pigeonhole in that division.
Masatori Yasuda is kind of the one question mark, because it's like, I think right now he got hurt. He's had time off. He probably hasn't progressed as much as the other guys. I think he started stronger than both Shoma Kato and Murashima, but I think he's still kind of finding his legs a little bit, but he does have a pedigree behind him. He's a multi-generation wrestler. He's, he does have a Mexican ancestry, and, is my understanding is bilingual. So there are some very positive upsides, and I think he has a good look, but I think he's a guy that would need to either really up his physique and get shredded and make himself look like a superstar, or put on a lot, or bulk and get a lot of size, or maybe do both. So
yeah.
Right now it's not so much. I know that these guys are learning and they need to go away. They need to learn to work heel and get a character and all that. But I'm also kind of just looking at it from a cosmetic standpoint. And I'm like, they need to work on that part too. Cause even if they figure that other stuff out, we've seen how this company treats guys. If they don't have the perfect look, then that's it.
Right. They kind of get maybe stuck in that maybe upper mid card is kind of the highest they go and they just kind of wind up as a second belt challenger, maybe a never person depending on their size. Like I could see Murashima kind of getting kind of stuck in that never division for a while, maybe for his whole career, just because of his size. If he doesn't really bulk up a little bit, obviously he has a lot of mass right now, but yeah, if he doesn't really get that more compelling look or character or whatever it is, he could be. And obviously the never division's great, and it's a great place to be, and especially with guys like Ishii and Goto aging out. You want to replenish and have that hard hitting style. But again, like you mentioned, we do want to find that next ace, and like I said, we're in an aceless company right now, and so also you're looking at these young lions. You want to see who's going to break out, who's going to have potential to be that next star, who could be that Tanahashi, like you're doing in your series, who can be that Kazuchika Okada. And right now it's hard to say that any of these guys will be that, but I'll see. Like you said, it's so hard to know what's going to happen to young lions post excursion, and once they get plugged in on the roster. We can talk about young lions since we've been doing the show, where people are like, that person is definitely going to be a breakout star. They're made, and then they get hurt, they never come back. They get saddled with a bad gimmick. Like we've seen so many people, so many quote unquote like surefire can't misses that don't end up being that next ace level star.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, there's always a role to play. I mean, being a great worker who isn't in the top 5, top 6, but is gainfully employed for a decade. I mean, it's hard to ask for more than that in a industry as difficult as professional wrestling is. But this is a company that's like yearning for stars. And so, yeah, there's openings, and we need guys to step up. And, it's just hard to look at this current crop. And yes, they are talented, but are they going to be what we need to succeed moving forward?
Yeah. So following that, the main card opened up. We had Shota Umino, Taichi, Tiger Mask, Tomohiro Ishii, and Yuji Nagata defeating the House of Torture team of Dick Togo, Doki, Evil, Sonata, and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. So this was pretty much just a preview for the G1 and G1 playoffs, and House of Torture kind of taking a rare loss right now with their renewed push.
Yeah, too much House of Torture on these shows. Luckily, on this one, it was, we did have a never 6-man, and yes, we did have Chase Owens later, but even still, this is less House of Torture than some of the other shows that we've had to endure during this Soul Tour, so that's good. And always good to see them take a loss, which is fine. And I don't have much more to say beyond that, but this didn't necessarily fire me up for
for G1
for G1 Climax.
Yeah, Umino got the win here with the STF on Dick Togo. So then following that, we had the unaffiliated team of Hiromu Takahashi, Shingo Takagi, and Yota Tsuji defeating the United Empire team of Cal Newman, Great Okan, and Jacob Austin Young in 10 minutes and 5 seconds. So again, another G1 preview. Shingo, Tsuji, Okan, and Newman all in the G1.
I got to tell you, Jeremy, I am not thrilled with the idea of Hiromu, Shingo, and Tsuji still teaming together. I know that there's probably some people listening and they vehemently disagree. They're probably like, yelling at their phones or wherever they're fucking listening to this. But like, I get it. There's a lot of love for LIJ, but to me, LIJ is not really LIJ without Tetsuya Naito at the helm, or even the passing of the torch to transition it into whatever it needed to be. And I think that these guys are all ready to step out and do something different. I don't think necessarily they need a full-on transformation character-wise, because they all do have really well-defined characters, and maybe they just need to tweak it a little bit, give them new motivations and affiliations. But the idea that these guys are all, I mean, you got Hiromu, Shingo, and Tsuji kind of just floating as a unit. That is just LIJ, but they're not calling it LIJ.
Yeah.
I think it is another indication of the issues going on with the creative in this company right now, because how do you let those three guys in particular be aimless? I know that they weren't necessarily anticipating the exits of Tetsuya Naito and Bushi and all that, but you pivot, you have to find something to do with these three individuals beyond just, creative has nothing for you, kid. You guys are just going to team together for now. Like, this is not just five. Remember when just four guys got thrown around? It was like we didn't have anything left to do with those guys after Suzuki-gun, so they just kind of got tossed together. This is Hiromu, Shingo, and Tsuji. You know what I mean? Like, Tsuji's probably the odds-on favorite to, fucking challenge for the, to win the G1. Shingo is a perennial IWGP title challenger. He's a former champion. He's one of the top workers in the entire company. And Hiromu is on the short list of like the four greatest juniors in the history of this company and still has all the star potential in the world and should probably be in this year's G1. What are we doing?
We're making them unaffiliated t-shirts and just pretending that they're still kind of LIJ. And when they're not LIJ, they're still going to come out with the same music, same gear. They had that press conference, and they said they would like to team together, but they're not, and they're going to break up, but it's the last time we're teaming together, but it's not. It's very confusing. I know there's some people that probably love it, but sometimes, like, if you love something, you got to let it go. And if it was ever truly yours, it'll come back to you, that sort of thing. But like, I think these guys all deserve better to be doing something bigger separately in defined roles. They're better than just being part of the Naitoverse, which is no longer a relevant thing any longer for the time being. Right. I mean, all three of these guys could be their own faction leaders. Like, they each could have their own group. That's how talented and how much star power each of those guys have. And I think it'd be, especially for Yota Tsuji, again, we've talked about these young guys kind of breaking out of these shadows and leading their own groups. Like, I think it would have been very beneficial for him, especially to pivot and give him his own unit, especially if he is going to win G1. What a better way than to like really solidify him by having him have his own new unit, win the G1, kind of create this new thing around him.
And, maybe there is still time for them to move things around. Maybe I'm being a little impatient here, but it does feel like they're treading water for the time being. And my thinking is like, could you hypothetically, I'm just going to throw this out there. Here's a scenario, and this doesn't have to be the only one. Mine's not the only right one, but I'm just going to give you one. Tsuji and Hiromu continue as a unit. Shingo goes off and does something else. I don't want to split hairs and, book everything for them, but Shingo goes off and does something different, something unique, whatever. But those two guys stick together, and then Hiromu becomes like the second in command, the top junior sort of role. Tsuji becomes the leader of the group, and then you build other young guys around them. That's a whole new thing altogether. You could also do it the other way too. You could do it with, I think keeping at least two of them together would be totally fine, because there is the connection, and it wouldn't be necessarily LIJ. It could be a whole new thing and that sort of thing. But when you just have the same three guys, same music, the same look, it's just LIJ, and they're not calling it that. And it's fucking weird. And it's boring.
Yeah. And then you have the quote unquote LIJ send off in Mexico with Teton way after they had already said they weren't LIJ. So yeah, I think there's a lot of work to be done there. And also, like you mentioned, they were probably expecting that these guys would still be LIJ at this point of the year. They weren't expecting Naito and Bushi to be gone. But like you mentioned, you got to pivot, and maybe they're just like, say, hey, well, we're going to go on autopilot until G1's over. But it does feel like, yeah, we have these top guys that we're just not really doing. I mean, I guess Shingo just had a world title match, but I don't know. Nothing really compelling came out of that.
The funny thing is they might just end up calling them LIJ. They own the name. Like, clearly Naito and them don't have the music. They don't have the name. They can't use it on the indies. What are the chances they're like, we're not giving up this fucking name. We own this name. We sold a lot of t-shirts off this name. Like,
Well, if that's what they want to do, fine. Then why go through this whole, like, they should have just kept being LIJ and just not done the whole unaffiliated thing then.
I wouldn't probably be making this complaint, although I was for a long time prior to Naito ever leaving saying like that they're a little long in the tooth. We need to find something new, but they weren't the only unit I was saying this about. It was a lot of them. Like, you know, it's time to pivot. It's time to shift. Like that's the job of the bookers to know when these things are the right time. And it feels like New Japan has kind of gotten comfortable relying on some of the old tricks in the course of going through like a difficult financial period anyways. They feel like they can't afford to probably take those chances, but it's also the thing you need to be doing. Like you need to be injecting, you need to take some chances and inject some new life in your blood. I'm not saying overhaul everything, but you can't overhaul nothing. And that's kind of what they've been doing is like just status quo for more than a decade.
Yeah.
Very little change.
So following that, we had El Desperado, Boltin Oleg, and Yuya Uemura defeating the TMDK team of Hartley Jackson, Kosei Fujita, and Zack Sabre Jr. So a preview match for the junior title match that would happen on today's show with Despy and Fujita. And then also a little bit of G1 preview with Boltin, Zack, and Uemura. And here we had Uemura getting the flash pin on old Big Jag, Hartley Jackson.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, that makes sense. I would like to see Hartley Jackson stop being just the perennial pin eater for TMDK, but for whatever reason, for the time being, that's his role. And he got on a commentary later in the show, and I thought he did a pretty great job for a lot of the foreigners struggle in that arena. I thought he did pretty good. But I'm looking forward to some of these guys in the G1, and that's about it. You know, it's a good preview match, and obviously Despy and Kosei Fujita had a lot of, you know, fire between the two of them.
Yeah, also post match, Zack and Boltin got into a shoving match. It had to be separated by a young lion, so I'm guessing they're in the same block. I don't have it blocks in front of me, but that would make sense to kind of build them up and build some heat upcoming match between them.
If I mean, maybe we're going with foreigners too much, but if I was not gonna have one of the top domestic stars take the title next, I might just advocate that they have Oleg Boltin be the guy to beat Zack Sabre Jr. and maybe not even be that far off from now, you know?
Yeah.
When he first, you know, broke in from the, you know, the quote unquote graduation, he wrestled against Zack several times and struggled with him. And I feel like the stars are kind of aligned for him to eventually be like, once he comes into his own, just kind of run over Zack in a way that like we've never really seen someone just run over Zack.
Yeah.
I think Oleg Boltin should just fucking flatten him.
Suplex City.
Yeah, like, you know, this every time he tries to put him in a submission hold, he powers out of that shit, and then
throws him.
Some big throws, and then, you know, whatever his, you know, an F5. I know that right now his finish is the
kamikaze,
the forward fire. Yeah, the kamikaze, the forward fireman's carry, you know, roll senton thing. But I think he needs a better finish, and I think that's coming. And yeah, he hits him with this fucking finish, gets him out of there, and he's the new IWGP champion. That'd be sick. That's the kind of shit we need. And he's got the look to do it.
Yeah. And he can speak the language. Yeah. So following that, we had
the Great White Hope.
Following that, we had G1 Climax 35 Block A play-in match. We had the Grip, Roy Oiwa, defeating the leader of the Bread Club, Satoshi Kojima, in 9 minutes and 44 seconds to punch his ticket to the G1.
This was perfectly fine. I like Oiwa. I think that it's great that he's going into this G1. It's going to be a really big test and also an incredible learning experience for him. Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't he already do a N1 victory?
Yes, he was in N1 when he was doing his excursion, yeah.
So maybe we're wrong, but I think he did, if I recall correctly. So, you know, this isn't his first rodeo in a major, you know, tour like this, in a round robin single situation. But a lot of people think he's ready to go. I don't. I think that this will help him get there, but I don't see a finished, completed product right now, personally. But I think that there's a lot of a lot of great talent to work with when it comes to him. On the other hand, with Kojima, I think I hate to say it, but if Kojima still has gas left in the tank, he's not showing it in these situations when he could be. You know what I mean? Like, I can't remember the last. Usually, it would be like Kojima, you know, kind of just coasts most of the time, but then when called upon to have a big singles match, it's not like he would knock it out of the park where you're like, damn, that Kojima match, you know, but it would be like, man, he still got it. Like that was pretty good, but like, it's been a long time since that Kojima showed up. And I remember even his MLW, like I remember watching the MLW run and being like, yeah, he's not really showing fucking much, but it is MLW and nobody takes it seriously. So maybe it's just that, but every time he's come back and been put in a single spot in New Japan, it's always kind of like this, where it's like few and far between. And, you know, I don't think Oiwa is really in a position yet to get something great out of him either. So I think it's a two ships passing in the night where, you know, one is past their prime and the other one is still coming into their own. And it's not good timing to have, you know, like a 3-star match at this point, you know?
Yeah, and this was a fine basic match. The story of the match, Oiwa worked over the lariat arm of Kojima, you know, tied it up on the guardrail on the outside, kicked it, did a lot of submission stuff around the lariat arm throughout, while also trying to set up his own grip lariat throughout the match. And you did have some Kojima hope spots of hitting the Koji cutter and, you know, hitting a lariat with the other arm, but eventually, Oiwa was able to hit the Dr. Bomb and eventually do the discus lariat, the grip, and pin Kojima here. So, yeah, so fine matchup here. And I agree with you. I do think that I don't think Oiwa is ready. And I know, like you said, a lot of people, especially during that Noah run, people were like, oh, yeah, he's the savior. He's the ace. He's going to change things. And I think he's great. But, yeah, I don't think he's quite there yet. And, you know, he did have some great matches with Kiyomiya, one of them being from the N1 victory. But yeah, I still think there's a lot for him to grow and shape, and I think G1 will be a good place for that to happen. Then following that, we had the B block play-in match, and everybody rejoiced as Yoshihashi defeated the Lone Star Outlaw Chase Owens in 12 minutes and 3 seconds.
I mean, Jeremy, you remember the early days of this show. There was a time where I was calling Chase Owens the most underrated talent in this company. And there's probably people listening that are scoffing at that and, you know, whatever. But there was a time where this guy, I thought he had a little something, but no longer. I really don't have use for him, especially this, after everything that came out with the allegations. And it's like, it is kind of funny because no one wants to talk about that shit. And I bring it up all the time. And it's like, that stuff was pretty out there. Like it was, you know, we got Marty out of here. We got other people out of here. But for some reason, Chase just kind of skated by on that shit for whatever reason that is. I don't know. But I don't know. I don't think it's worth the money to fly the dude out any longer. I mean, this was great in the sense of, Yoshihashi got into the G1. I like Yoshihashi a lot. You know, we've talked over the years how he has improved so much, and there is a sort of underdog, you know, underappreciation for him, you know, that simpy. Obviously, when this match took place, we didn't necessarily know that Goto was not going to be in the G1 any longer. So there's also like the Bishamon element to it. But at the end of the day, as good as like Yoshihashi is, I don't think anyone like actually, let me put it this way. When Taichi didn't get in, it was like, fuck, Taichi hasn't gotten his flowers for all these years. And people want that to happen. Mm-hmm. For Yoshihashi, no one ever expected him to ever even get as high as he is right now. And he's hit the height of where like he has gotten his flowers. For him to go any higher would be astounding. Like it would be unbelievable for him to ever get like a never title reign or win like the strong title. You know what I mean? Like he's done. This is it. And he's a great hand. And I think he is better than a lot of people when it comes to producing match quality for the G1. So he's a happy, welcome addition, but he's also a no-hoper all the same. So we shouldn't be rejoicing this much about his entrance through this playoff thing, the only reason we are is because nobody fucking wanted to see Chase Owens in this shit. And if that's the situation, he probably shouldn't even be in the company or in this spot whatsoever. And I know that probably sounds harsh to some people that are like, you know, you're calling for a dude to not have a job, but it's like, it's tough business.
Dude,
people come and go, you know, it's part of it.
How old do you think Chase Owens is?
I mean, I could just look it up.
No, but I just want you, just based off of looks, like how old do you think he is?
43.
He's 35.
Wait,
he's the same age as me.
I was gonna say he's younger than me.
Yes.
Holy shit, bro, that's crazy.
That man looks 45, bro. Oh man,
I had to think about what my own age is because I always forget what my age is.
Yeah.
Damn, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what we're doing here with Chase, and yeah, there was a time, like you mentioned, where I felt like he had some really good mechanics, and he was a good utility player to have in the company, and a great kind of like C-level Bull Club guy to be a penny eater for AJ and Kenny. And he had his role, but yeah, now it's very long in the tooth, and he's doing this whole, we talk about, things that need to be revamped. They decide to waste time and energy revamping Chase Owens, and this whole Lone Star Outlaw gimmick is horrible.
I think it's just him doing it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't think that they did anything for that. Like, he was like, yeah, I got this idea. They're like, okay, go do it. That's it. Like, no one's gonna
maybe
say
they
yes,
didn't
say no.
Maybe they didn't do anything with it, but they're promoting it. They shared that crappy bar video he made. They're using that horrible country song. They're allowing him to come out in this horrible gear. Like, this is just an excuse for him to just wrestle in a t-shirt and jeans.
Oh man, yeah. It's high time that this guy's gonzo,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. Like, it's done.
Yeah.
And this match, and we haven't even talked about the match. We've just talked about the implications. The match itself, terrible. The match was terrible.
And that's we had no run-ins either, and it was still not great.
There was a time when it came to Chase where it was like he was a fine, serviceable hand. You didn't get great matches, but it was always up to a certain level and caliber, and that has just really dipped in decline. And this isn't like a product of the pandemic or something, because going back a couple of years ago, I remember he was in that one block in the G1 with all the young guys, and he wasn't great, but like, he was fine. You know what I mean? Like, every one of those guys got a good learning experience working Chase during that term. And to me, that's the last notable time I can remember him even being like that guy, the 3-star savior type dude. Those days are gone. Like, we don't need that. Fale does not need to be in this company. Chase Owens does not need to be in this company, especially considering all the other baggage that comes along with them. It would just be better if the company was, if their hands were clean,
Yeah. And you know how I know Chase Owens is not a great idea to have, because nobody else is like knocking down a door for him. Like, he's a foreign wrestler, and AEW is not banging the door down. WWE's not banging the door down. This guy's not making a bunch of indie dates all over the weekend. Like, not all of the other outside options are like dying to book this guy and have them on their show. But New Japan, just because he filled in for one of the Jacksons one time during Super Juniors, he has a job for life.
Yeah, how long does that shit go? You know what I mean? Like, yes, he shows up when called upon, and that's great, but like, that goodwill, how far does that go? I know that so much of Japanese wrestling is relational and stuff like that, and a lot of it's who you know and the connections you made and loyalty, but like, it's also a business, bro.
That would be like us. Like, we always show up to our job, but we suck at our job, and we don't do a lot of things right. But man, we're there bright and early, first thing, we're the first one to clock in, but our production is not great.
Let me take it a step further. Do I think he should be off the payroll? Yes. But if you feel so strongly that this guy needs to be employed, find something else for him to do. I don't need to see him bumping in the ring any longer. But who knows? I don't know. Maybe you put the black and white stripes on him. Maybe that's a good role for him.
He's great in commentary. I think he's a pretty good commentary guy.
I don't really want to hear him talk, but yeah, put him on commentary if that's how you feel. You know, there's a lot of, I mean, I bet you he could probably agent some matches. I don't know. Put him in the black suit, let him hold a camera, do something. Set the ring up, tear that shit down. I don't know. Drive the boys around on the bus. Maybe he could manage the no-gay dojo, be the guy, like not the trainer, but the guy that just like tells them their schedules.
The
and,
receptionist.
You know, makes the food. Yeah, shit like that.
Answers the calls at the dojo.
If you want to keep him on payroll, that's your business. I don't think it's prudent, but you could do that. But I don't need to see him competing in the ring any longer at all. And also no manager roles. I don't think that's appropriate.
No on screen unless it's commentary or referee.
Referee I could probably deal with. But I don't know. They don't really have out of shape referees in New Japan. You know what I mean?
That's true. I think Marty Asami is like the most like, you know, round. I mean, he's kind of jacked, but he's also kind of round. But that's about it. Yeah.
You can be meat and potatoes fat and be a referee, but you can't be jelly donut fat and be a referee.
Yeah.
You know,
maybe he can run like the Twitter accounts.
No, I don't think that's a good idea. This is the same man that put out that bar fight promotional video showing him riding the fucking pony with the training rope on it.
Maybe he's already doing social because their account reshared it.
I don't think so, but maybe. We saw, remember that time when they showed the video where like Evil broke into the
control,
the control room with the socials.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Oh man. So yeah, Yoshihashi got the win here by hitting the Karma on Chase to get the win. So, like I said, great that Chase is not in, and yeah, good for good old Yoshihashi here. Then following that, we had the never openweight 6-man tag team title match. Master Wato, Toriano, and Yo defeat Ren Narita, Sho, and Yujiro to become the new never 6-man champion. So lots of shenanigans in this match, and towards the end we had Yano putting a bag over Yujiro's head and getting the pinfall here.
Yeah, this is not really what I need to see out of my professional wrestling, but I don't know, maybe there is. I'm sure there's an audience for this. I know Josh McLaughlin, when he does watch wrestling, I don't know the last time he watched wrestling, but when he watches wrestling, he's a big Yano guy. But for me, I just don't have any use for this particular brand of professional wrestling when it comes to all the House of Torture bullshit. And then, you know, the other shit. I feel bad for Wato because he's a guy that like was on the cusp of doing something in this company before injury and then has not been plugged back in properly. And they got him chilling with, you know, Yano and Yo. Then those are not good influences on him, you know, to get to where he needs to be. Last week, I was very dismissive of this match because I was like, fuck, look at this lineup for the never 6-man. It's going to suck.
Yeah. Not
even really looking at the implications of the fact that it's also a junior tag team title preview, which tells you the state that we've fallen into when it comes to the junior tag team title, which like just last year, this was a hot title with some really great teams contesting for it. Now it's like, shit, I got to watch, you know, not only that, but it's also like Doki's involved. You know, he's not in this match, but like Doki is like incredible. But again, stuck with the House Torture shtick. It's terrible.
Yeah.
And the only thing I really think about when this whole match was over, I was like, well, Wato and Yo picked up the 6-man tags. They're definitely not regaining those junior titles tomorrow at all. Like that's off the table.
Yeah, and this is a booking pattern we see Gato do where you have the back-to-back title matches, and yeah, they'll win the never 6-man the one night, but then they'll lose either the heavyweight or junior tag title challenge the next night. So he's definitely done that pattern before. So yeah, as soon as I saw I didn't think they were winning junior tag titles anyway, but especially once they did win here, I knew that they were definitely losing on today's show. yeah, not too much else to talk about this match. A bunch of shenanigans. Yano out shenanigan them, got the one.
Not the greatest show top to bottom, really. The one really shining bright spot is this main event that we're about to talk about.
Yep, the IWGP Global Heavyweight Title match. War Ready Gabe Kidd defending the title and defeating the ace Hiroshi Tanahashi in 23 minutes and 58 seconds in a really great main event.
I thought the match was very uneven, to be honest with you. I definitely have a few things to point out as complaints that I wasn't super thrilled about. And not all of it is even the competitor's fault. I think also this audience was kind of lulled to sleep by a lackluster show in general. Mm-hmm. And then, again, it wasn't a great drawing show to begin with. So there's also that. I do have to kind of wonder about Gabe Kidd and his booking this entire year. And then also the AEW stuff and how a lot of that has coincided with his seemingly being cooled off, because I can't imagine, and people were mentioning this in the Discord as well, I just can't imagine that if you'd run this particular match in, say, March of this year, that it would have drawn 1,300 or, just shy of 1,400 or had this low a level of response from the audience. It just seems unfathomable. Mm-hmm. Especially given the fact that this is like part of Tanahashi's final run and the importance of the match and the fact that it's for the secondary title and everything that surrounds it. The match itself was very, very good. There was there was a couple times where Gabe started to break into the melodrama with the jaw jacking. And I'm a big fan of like trash talk, but there's like organic earned, moments like that. And then there's just shoehorning it, and I think sometimes he falls into the latter. Mm-hmm. But putting that, and then also Tanahashi down the stretch, it depends on what your mileage is when it comes to Tanahashi and his current state of things. Because on the one hand, you might look at it and say to yourself, like, Tanahashi is breaking down, but it's part of what is happening to him. Like, you basically, one moment. Sorry about that. What I was mentioning is that, like, yes, there are times where he's struggling, but, and it is hard to watch because it's like, yeah, this is a guy who isn't in his prime any longer and able to do the things that he was able to do. And so, but then there's also the part where it's like, well, it's part of the narrative because it is actually happening. Mm-hmm. And we're all experiencing it with him. And you don't expect someone in his position to be able to perform at the level that he did, say 7 or 8 years ago when he was in his prime. And so it's part of the progression, and it is part of the drama. So it's double-sided because on the one hand, it's like, fuck, he's like, he can't go, but then should he be performing at a tip top level at this stage with how many miles have been put on his body and everything like that. So yeah, he had some rough parts down the stretch. Putting those few criticisms aside, though, I thought that the performers involved, I thought that they did a really, really great job. The early portions, there was incredible grappling between these two guys. It broke down into heated exchanges, great strikes. It did seem like early on, the story of the match was that Gabe was clearly the more dominant, young, domineering champion, but he wanted the fight to come out of Tanahashi, and he could have potentially put Tanahashi away earlier, but he was trying to excite or bring out of Tanahashi that fighting spirit. So he almost played with his food a little too long. Mm-hmm. And then eventually Tanahashi did fire up and did start coming back and giving him, the slaps and hitting him with all of his big signature stuff. And eventually was able to hit high fly flows to the outside and to standing position the inside, the ace is high, and eventually did hit him with the high fly flow, for a very, very close near fall and very believable one. And for me watching the match, I didn't think that Tanahashi was going to win, but the way it started, like the way he got dominated so thoroughly early on, I almost started to think like they did just have Zach win the IWGP title when nobody thought that it could happen. So who knows what could happen here? The booking is so topsy-turvy. Like, do I think Gabe should be winning or should be dropping the title? No. But like they started to get me to believe down the stretch. And I was like, come on, fucking Ace, like, let's go.
Yeah.
And he got really, really, really close, but he wasn't able to do it. And ultimately, like, Gabe was able to survive him and, hit him with, the big knee and hit him with the different pile drivers that he uses and put him away for the 1, 2, 3. And there was a very emotional post match where Gabe's crying and talking about everything that, Tanahashi means to him and the connection between those two guys, and a big send off. Again, I feel like maybe in front of a better crowd on a bigger stage, this would have meant more, but the match was still very, very, very good. Even though I think it was a little uneven, I think there was definitely some things to criticize. And then the last thing, and I'll kick it off to you because I know I've talked for a long time, but I'm on a roll remembering everything that happened in this match. The Gabe character is also still very confusing, because it's like he's still wearing the lion mark and he's wearing, the Death Riders and the War Dog shit. And he's this heel and he's a dick, but he's also, leaning into the spirit side and, the fighting spirit and, the connection to Tanahashi and the real world stuff. And like, he's baby facing, but he's also healing. And I think some people would probably look at that and say like, well, they're telling it, this is a shades of gray. It's a nuanced character. And it's like, but there's no cohesion whatsoever. Like you're left confused watching the character being like, what is the direction? And I think it's hard to form that connection with the character when he clearly wants to be, loved by the fans and be that, kind of ace representative of the company, but he's also still doing the Conor McGregor shtick, and the company hasn't picked a lane on how they want to present him. Not to mention the AEW stuff with the Death Riders. It's just very confusing, honestly.
Yeah, and I think it's been definitely a big shift from what was going on in February. And I think that, at least to me, the story was like, all right, here's this Bull Club guy, anti-authority, like you mentioned, the Conor McGregor kind of attitude guy. But at his root, this is a guy that went through, the LA dojo, Noge dojo, and has this New Japan route, and then coming out with the lion mark. To me, that was like, all right, the character is shifting more into the route and shifting into this baby face, and not this whole kind of flip flop back and forth. And I was expecting that we would see Gabe lean more into that and kind of shift more into that, anti-hero baby face later on in the year, caused issues with him and Dave Finlay. With Finlay kind of being, where's your alliance? Like, you're supposed to, bring bodies and titles in the War Dog, and now you're rocking the lion mark, and you're saying you are New Japan. Like, we don't care about this company. I was expecting that kind of be the story for the rest of the year. Him kind of, having the struggle of wanting to be both, but clearly leaning more into the wanting to be the representation of New Japan and having issues with Finlay. And then we would see like this really, the solidifying turn that would make him like a top babyface, star. But yeah, that just didn't happen for whatever reason. We did the whole, still more back and forth, and then the whole Death Rider stuff happens. And yeah, even in this match, it's like, kudos to Chris Charlton. He's trying to play it up as, the different voices in his head. Like, one voice is saying, give it up, Tanahashi. The other voice is saying, come on, Tanahashi, you got to fight. But at this point now, we're, 7 months into the years, several months past the New Beginning match, and it doesn't feel like this is a continuation of what was happening there. It feels like you mentioned, we don't know what to do. We have no idea. So we're just going to be lazy and say he's a madman. So he just kind of says random stuff, does random things, where it seemed like in February, there was a different direction, a different setup. He was going to start leaning more into the New Japan roots and eventually break out and become the hero that the people want him to be.
Yeah. And I mean, unfortunately, maybe there was some sort of intention to portray a complex narrative, and, like some of the stuff that Chris Charlton has been saying, like you mentioned, the the internal conflict. And, they've also talked about like the loyalty aspect. I'm loyal to those who I'm loyal to and who are loyal to me and blah, blah. But ultimately, there still has to be some level of cohesion to all of it that makes it gel. And if it's just, I don't know, it kind of reminds me, it's not quite the same, but like, remember all the times where at certain points with WWE, you started to feel like, what the fuck is going on with Bray Wyatt? What is this guy?
Yeah, he's just saying
it's not
stuff.
quite the same thing, but yeah, it was like, he's just saying stuff. And there was times where it felt like he was like a cool heel, then he's trying to be dastardly and super evil. Then he's like kind of a good guy. And like, you don't and then it's like, you're not supposed to get it, And it's like, but this doesn't sell tickets. Like, this isn't drawing. And ultimately, that's the biggest thing is like, you need to make money. And you make money by getting over. And this sort of thing, unfortunately, doesn't get over. I do think that there's room to tell these kinds of stories in a transitionary phase, like you were mentioning, and I think you can even maintain aspects of a character when the transition is over. We talked about him being similar in style to, like, say, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and the Stone Cold Steve Austin character before WrestleMania 13 and after WrestleMania 13 isn't so super different, but there's clear directions, and there was the clear direction change. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just small tweaks. Like, we're not saying that the guy needs to become a smiley, happy baby face overnight or anything like that, but pick a lane with what you're trying to do. And I think the point that you made, Jeremy, is really great. Like, the fact that there has been this lack of cohesion and there's been no response or reaction from those in his unit whatsoever also makes it seem like, how does this narrative make any sense? That nobody, they didn't respond within the group when he started showing signs of allegiance to New Japan as a whole, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they didn't show any level of response when he started becoming the lackey to Jon Moxley, even though that directly conflicted with the match that they'd had in LA just like before that. And then since then, he's kind of just been off doing his thing while this War Dog stuff is happening. He wasn't even involved in the Finlay shit. We haven't seen his response to what happened to Finlay. Like, it's fucking weird. And I don't know. I don't think it makes money.
Yeah, and you would think that also Finlay would not be happy with him doing the Death Rider stuff. Like, Finlay was feuding with Jon Moxley, over the U.S. Global Title, and had no respect for Jon Moxley, and Finlay's all about the War Dog. So yeah, you'd think there would have been some kind of internal conflict in the group with Gabe's multiple focuses, but and I know I haven't watched all the backstage promos, but it definitely has not been a focus within that unit of Gabe being all over the place.
Look, do I think that the majority of what has gone wrong with the Gabe Kidd character over the course of the year is a result of mismanagement and bad creative? Yes, within New Japan. Yes, I do. But I will say this, and again, I'll take it even a step further. I think that the feud with Ishii was detrimental. As good as those matches were, as much as I liked them, Gabe really is not over in the States to the level that he was in domestically in Japan. And that was very clear when he wrestled Ishii in February in like California. And then even the match in Chicago is very clear, like, that he's just not there yet. He's still like seen as like a Bullet Club heel guy sort of thing, and Ishii is like this beloved legend. And then for him to job to Ishii, and we talked about at the time that entire, like, they didn't have a finish for 30 minutes in the first match. So then they do a 30-minute Iron Man match. Doesn't make any sense anyways, like, narratively. But coming off of the match with Kenny Omega, and then I don't remember if it happened before the Tsuji match or not, but I think it was just before the Tsuji match. Like, he shouldn't have been going to a draw with Ishii.
Right. He should have been beating Ishii.
Right. And then he goes to it. I mean, because as much as I love Ishii and as much as I think he's a Hall of Famer and a top-notch talent, this guy that we're talking about right now, him not going to the G1, and they were like, yeah, domestically, he hasn't won a singles match in New Japan in like years. And it's like, fuck, like if he hasn't won a singles match in years, why isn't Gabe Kidd, the guy that just went life and death with Kenny Omega in the Dome, not beating him? And then what makes it worse? Why is he turning around in Chicago and jobbing to the guy? I think, and then, you know, we've also talked about the other stuff from the story standpoint with the War Dogs and House Torture that's also kind of played into all this. So yeah, I think that New Japan has dropped the ball in capitalizing when this guy was hot as the sun back in January and February with the Tsuji and the domestically speaking with the Tsuji and the Kenny Omega match. But I will say this, as time goes on, this thing that I keep saying where I think that him going over and working AEW, and not just working AEW, but working AEW in the specific way where they brought him in as a mercenary to work for Jon Moxley, I think it did affect what's going on with him in Japan. And there's a lot of people that were immediately like, no, that's knee jerky. The fans don't care, blah, blah. But we have seen a definitive shift in how he is. He's not getting booed out of buildings. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying like he's hated and everyone is, you know, turned their backs on him and they're done, but they're kind of apathetic, and they weren't apathetic before that happened. And maybe it's just a coincidence. Maybe it's just these two things happening simultaneously. But me personally, I don't think it's a coincidence that before he went to AEW, he was still fucking hot in the company. And then after he went to AEW and it totally went counterintuitive to the narrative that they were telling and the stories that he was telling and stuff he was saying on the mic, that the crowd just kind of became like a little apathetic to him, which again is why I don't think that they would have sold 1,400 tickets to this match on Tanahashi's road to, or, you know, final road, if they did it in March. I think if they did this match in March, they sell way more tickets. I think they do at least like 2,500 seats.
Yeah,
personally.
Yeah, because he would have been super hot coming off the Kenny match, coming off the Ishii match, coming off the Tsuji match. There would have been a lot of momentum there. And yeah, I think there would have been more interest for the match at that point in time. And yeah, it does. He does feel like he's cooled down a lot since the beginning of the year, which stinks because he was on a hot run, a lot of great matches, even with all that Ishii stuff thrown in. Like he was having a really great first half of the year, and it was just poor follow up with him, you know, getting knocked out of New Japan Cup early, then having to lose to Ishii, and then having to be stuck in this whole House of Torture feud. So there's a lot of stuff, in New Japan that didn't help, and then it seems like, the AEW run and just the confusion of the character there is not helping people's reaction to him. And I feel like he's having to work overtime now to try and get the fans back on his side. And he's really, really up in the whole, I am New Japan thing, where in February that felt more real. And now it kind of feels like he's trying super hard to lure the fans back on his side.
But you can't be that character, the guy who represents the company, if you don't take a definitive stance about what it is you're doing and who you are. You can't straddle every aspect of the character spectrum. You can't be the second in command to David Finlay and be this, War Dog, loyalist, Bullet Club member, and the heart and spirit and the rah New Japan guy who's not even part of Hantai. And I go work it for AEW, and I'm, a mercenary for Jon Moxley, and I'm involved in all that shit, especially when all of these things, and for anyone who's like, well, it's a complex character. It's like, but it doesn't draw money and it doesn't get him over. And the whole point was to make this guy a top star, and we need stars. It's not doing business. That's the issue. So I think it's just, it's very convoluted, and I think it's, and here's the last thing I will say is, like, it sounds like when I'm saying, oh, he went to AEW, let's throw the blame on Tony Khan. Let's throw the blame on AEW. And I do think to some extent, that if you're a partner promotion, you have a responsibility that if I'm going to use the talent from this other group, maybe I should be aware of what the character is or isn't doing. Like, what is the character face heel alignment? Who are they? You should have at least a bare minimum understanding of how you can plug them into your company without crossing those storytelling lines. But at the end of the day, as much as I'd like to blame it all on him, it's really not his fault. It is New Japan's fault because they're the ones who are giving the green light to all of this. And to put it in perspective, I don't think that Tony Khan would ever let any of his talent that was in the midst of some sort of major story, go cross boundaries and get their character assassinated. It just wouldn't happen. And I think the fact of the matter is what happened in Strong didn't jive with what's going on domestically. And what happened in AEW didn't jive with what's going on in Strong or domestically. And at some point, somebody, whoever that is, and I think this is another issue with we're seeing issues in creative, we're seeing issues with management. There's not a cohesive presentation of what is and isn't happening. And the buck needs to stop with somebody, and there needs to be accountability for someone taking charge of all this shit and making sure it all makes sense. And there's a vision being enacted. And I don't know who that person is. I mean, we could say it's Goto, we could say it's Tanahashi or Sugabayashi or whoever, but somebody is dropping the ball in New Japan and allowing these things to fall through the crack.
Yeah.
Because if I was in charge, I'm not saying I'm perfect, but there's no way I would fucking let him go over in AEW and be used in that capacity. Maybe you do let him go, but someone should have had the approval, the thumbs up, and be like, Tony, what do you want to do with this guy? Oh no, that's not going to work because just last week we were doing this, blah, 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 blah. Boom. That conversation is not being had. And because someone didn't do their due diligence, someone didn't take responsibility, we're seeing the repercussions of it right now. And it's not good.
Yeah. And yeah, that would have been obviously great for this match, having a bigger crowd, bigger reaction. But like you mentioned, this was a really good match. And towards the beginning, the first 10 minutes, it was kind of the Gabe show. Gabe was out wrestling Tanahashi, doing Tanahashi's moves, dragon screw, leg whips, and sling blades, and the guitar, and really taunting Tanahashi. And then we had Tanahashi come back and the high fly floor to the outside, which I gasped when.
Yeah, but he hit it perfectly, that one.
Yeah.
He actually hit all of them. Oh, Gabe tried to hit a high fly flow himself.
He didn't do it good.
And he did not do it good whatsoever. It's always funny to see guys try to use if they're not used to doing a frog splash, they try to bust it out. We've seen somebody else recently try to do a frog splash. I can't remember if it was Eagles, or I think it was Eagles. Eagles tried to use somebody's splash and he overshot and it didn't look right. Maybe it wasn't him, but
I can't.
It sounds familiar.
Yeah.
But it's not as easy to bust out a high flying move when you're trying to steal a high flying move from somebody as it is if you're just stealing a rock bottom or some shit like that, Right.
And I feel like Gabe's tried a couple high flying stuff lately that hasn't really fully worked out for him.
I remember he used to hit a flying splash. It looked really good. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, Tanahashi, the high fly floor, he hit it perfectly on the outside, but still I was like, oh my gosh, your knees are not going to love that. Flashes of my dad's a heel wrestler. But yeah, then come back from the inside.
Hopefully Shane Helms doesn't catch wind of what happened there. Did you didn't see that shit?
With him posting about wrestlers shouldn't do moves that hurt themselves more than the opponent or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, he was freaking out about Cavernario, and I'm like, you have no idea what this man is doing to himself. It's so much worse than what you're commenting on. You have no idea.
Yeah. And so then back in the ring, Tanahashi's he's doing his dragon screws, he's doing the clover leaf, and Kid's having to fight out of that. And then you had the big near fall, the high fly flow perfectly, and at that point, I bought it. I was like, oh man, because Tanahashi
square.
Because most of the times, he just misses. People really haven't kicked out of the high fly flow, and when he does win, it's really been with one. And so, when he hit it, I thought that, we're flipping the belt here. But then eventually Gabe came back, pulled the knee pad down, was doing a bunch of the O-knees to him, and then eventually hit him with that knee caught pile driver. I forget what he calls it. But gets the win there. Like you mentioned, the big emotional post-match promo talking about his mental health issues and how Tanahashi would FaceTime him and call him and make sure he was good. during the pandemic. So really good close to the show. And again, yeah, it would have been better had, it been last year's, almost 3,000 people. And if it was, first quarter Gabe Kidd, who was still hot. But overall, this was a highlight of the show and a great close.
Yeah, one last thing I do want to touch base on too is as cool as the match was and as much as it did deliver, even though there's some criticisms, you also have to wonder if some of this is on Tanahashi being a little bit overexposed in this run, because it's like, and I don't know. I don't know if it's the fairest thing to criticize, but if it's like you want him to wrestle everybody and to be active and have all these singles matches, great. That's awesome. But there's a very wide swing in quality when he's wrestling, like say a Makabe, and not just because of who he's wrestling, but also the effort that he's putting out. And then obviously in the big matches, when he needs to, he does turn it up with like Goto, Takeshita, and Gabe Kidd. But the audience is seeing him wrestle everybody. And more often than not, the performances aren't really that great. And it's very overexposed because how much of a draw is it for Tanahashi's, unless they are promoting it like, if they're saying like, this is Tanahashi's final match in, the Tokyo Budokan or whatever, then maybe that's it. But I think that there is a double-edged sword too. It's like, you want to see him wrestle everybody and go out and get his flowers, but also if you're expecting it to do business, maybe you need to support the match a little bit more, because just putting him in a spot with Gabe Kidd is probably not enough at this point in time, especially with him wrestling everybody. And I'm also concerned about his body holding up because of how active he is. And he's getting ready to go into G1. And he looked, we're going to talk about it. I liked the match from today. A lot of people didn't. I did. He's looking rough. And I'm like, can this guy do a fucking G1? This is going to be crazy.
Yeah. And after he does the G1, he will have more singles matches than he did in like 2006 or 7. I forgot the year, but he's having a crazy amount of singles matches this year. And it's like, yeah, is his body going to hold up? And now, which we'll jump into, the transition news item. After this show, we got the news that Hirooki Goto is going to miss G1 Climax 35. And after a medical evaluation, it was determined that Goto, who missed the July 4th show, would be forced to miss the G1 due to an elbow injury that was sustained at the Tanahashi Jam. And, Goto was a top draw as champion. And I think a lot of the shows have benefited with Goto as a draw. And now without Goto, one of the major draws you're now relying on is, the Tanahashi retirement tour. And is that enough to draw people in? Maybe for certain cities, certain venues. I know some shows are advertised as, this is Tanahashi's last time in this prefecture, this building, and maybe they need to do more of that. But I don't think that you can fully rely on just Tanahashi's final road to be the key draw. Like, this is what gets back to the whole thing of like, they need to be pushing the young guys, making new stars, because now you just lost Goto, who's already not a spring chicken, and who was your top draw for the first half of the year. Now it's like pretty much like all on Tanahashi again.
I agree. I don't have much more to add to that. It is funny because on today's commentary, they're talking about trying to make Tanahashi Jam available still. And, figuring out how they're going to get that available on New Japan World. I'm like, you guys got the footage. Just fucking Stevie Asahi, just fucking do it. I don't know. Like, but who knows? I don't understand the TV contract business over there. But there was criticism about, there was speculation going on in our Discord because some people were like, oh, the match might have been changed on the fly because, Red Shoes did throw up an X, and people were like, no, it wasn't a real X. It was a working X because it was the kind of X that occurred at the
peak of the match.
At the peak of the match when the match was supposed to end. It's not the real X. You know when it's the real X when it's unexpected. And they were saying, essentially compare it to like what happened with Doki at Wrestle Kingdom, right? And at first I was like, yeah, it makes sense, whatever. And then, last week people that were in the know who do have sources in Japan were like, this was planned all along, long-term build. And we heard about the injury, but we didn't know the severity of the injury. They're like, the injury had nothing to do with it. This was always going to take place. But then later in the week, it's like, oh, well, he's out of G1 and out indefinitely. We don't know how long. And it's like, I went back and I've like rewatched that match and that scene. And I'm like, there is a lot of communication going on between Red Shoes and Goto. Now, I don't want to play conspiracy theorist and say for sure what happened, you know, because I don't know. I don't have any sources that have said one way or the other. I believe if everyone is saying that the title was supposed to change here, it probably was supposed to change here. I also think there is the possibility that things were like the injury and the title change coincided within the same match. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, and I'm not even saying that the X was real, because it is a situation where he's just like, you know, Red Shoes is just shaking his head and he just throws, he just does a quick X and he walks up and he's like ringing the bell and he's doing the finger like, no, like ring the bell. But he also is kind of doing something that I don't ever really usually see him do during the stoppage, which is where Zach is continuing to tie the maneuver. You know how he does, where he continues
the
to
5-second gimmick.
Well, not even that. Like when he gets a guy and he grabs a new limb, then a new limb, and he starts augmenting those moves and he keeps adding to the submission. Mm-hmm. And he's starting to grapevine Goto's legs and like Red Shoe stops him from doing it, and like he's like, stop, like he's telling him to like chill, just stop, let me go talk to him. And I noticed there was a lot of communication between them before that. So I'm not saying the stoppage wasn't planned, that it wasn't worked, but I am wondering if like he was also injured in that match and these things are all just kind of like lining up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and like last guy was saying, I felt like Goto was doing a really great job of selling the arm at the end, because he looked good. He was in so much pain at the end of the match and leaving the ring. But now that we see, yeah, it was a legit injury, that it makes a lot more sense.
You know, and who knows? Maybe some people are. I'm not trying to advocate and say like, oh, the X was real, but I will say this: I don't think that the X should ever really be thrown unless someone actually is hurt. Personally. Mm-hmm. I know that takes away from the working aspect of professional wrestling. Like you want to be able to suspend disbelief, and, you know, the old work is the new work, and you want to be able to, you know, blur the lines. But I think when it comes to like a universal signal of this guy is real world shoot fucking hurt, I don't think that should ever be worked personally. That's just my opinion on it. I get some people are probably have a different opinion. But I'm like, if he wasn't hurt, then you probably just shouldn't throw an X. But other people are probably like, I love that he threw the X, because now I don't know what really fucking happened, you know?
Yeah.
But it was funny because people in our Discord, there was people in the Discord like, there was no X. And then there was an X. I'm like, I saw an X. I don't know what the X means. I'm not saying it wasn't the X. They're like, it wasn't the, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I see an X, you know, this man looked like he's about to, you know, tell him to suck it, you know. I know an X when I see one.
Yeah, there was definitely a X. But yeah, there's debate on, whether it was the X, if it was work X, shoot X. But yeah, regardless, Goto is legitimately injured, going to be missing the G1. So yeah, there was definitely a real injury in that match, or maybe he came into the match with the injury. We don't know, but yeah, Goto is out of G1. And that's going to take us to today's Cork and Hall show, the final night of the New Japan Soul Tour, Night 9, Sunday, July 6th. We had a sold-out crowd of 1,489 in Cork and Hall. Show opened up once again with Tetsuya Matsumoto and Zane J wrestling to a 10-minute time limit draw. Don't think we really have much else to add here, but both guys looking good. Zane J was working over the arm, doing a lot more Kimuras and arm work in this match, which Matsumoto was doing to Zane J earlier on in the series of draws, so that's kind of a big difference here. And then towards the end, Matsumoto was the one with the Boston Crab on with the time running out. Then following that, we had Daiki Nagai and Katsuya Murashima once again defeating Masatori Yasuda and Shoma Kato. So again, same tag match, same team win once again. Daiki Nagai submitting Yasuda in a pretty big deal because they've been trading wins, and this is like 2 wins in a row for Daiki Nagai, and it seems like him and Murashima are gelling really well together as a team.
Yeah, and the big talking point coming out of this match is kind of 2 things. The one, Daiki Nagai really showing a lot of contempt towards Yasuda after the match was over, grabbing the ice bag that the Young Lions use and throwing buckets,
doing
the ballin' fucking pose, which was hilarious.
Yeah.
But then also post match, in the backstage, kind of appealing, and I guess they've done this in the past already. So it's this isn't the first time it's ever come up, but basically appealing to the members of unaffiliated, formerly known as LIJ, to be taken under their wing. And in the past, they've kind of been like friendly, but not really receptive to the idea. And as of today, they were receptive. So it appears that Shingo Takagi will be taking Daiki Nagai under his wing, and he will be joining this unaffiliated, definitely not LIJ group, which is cool, but it's also a little, I don't know, like Daiki Nagai's been around for a bit, so it's cool. There are shared similarities between what they did with Fujita in this situation. So it is but we already had our criticisms earlier in the show about overall what they're doing with, the new LIJ, and they're adding a guy in, which is, I guess, fine, but also we need to figure out what the fuck this even is in the first place. The other thing too, is I'm wondering, like, is this his forever home?
Yeah.
Or is this a temporary spot before, to kind of get hit, add a wrinkle to his story before he does eventually go away on an excursion? Fujita never went away on that excursion. He just kind of did some tours in, the US and in Australia, but it was really, he was splitting time between them and Japan for the most part. And I do wonder if he would have potentially been better off having had a prolonged excursion. I mean, some people would say yes, some people would say no, but I am wondering if Daiki Nagai, again, he's under in terms of like, he is the Kosei to Shoma Kato and Murashima, and it almost feels like he's passing them up a little bit. So maybe they do see something in him. I think it's an interesting wrinkle. Some people really, really love this, but I think how much you're into it depends on how much faith you have in the creative behind this faction in general right now.
Yeah, I mean, I thought in the match, Daiki Nagai really stood out as the guy out of those 4. Like in the beginning, the pre-match, like how the way he was ignoring Yasuda, and then within the match, like he had a lot of fire, a lot of great facial reactions, a lot of great crowd connection, and just his face kind of reminds me of like a mix of like a young Suzuki or young Taichi, and I just felt like he had a lot of fire, great connection, and picked up the win. And he just felt like more of a guy out of all those guys. And then this happened after the Hiromu match later on the card, where he comes up to them and is asking to be a part of unaffiliated, and they tell him to take off the Hantai shirt, and they give him an unaffiliated shirt, and he walks off with them. And then later on through the whole show, he's still doing his Young Lion duties, but he's wearing the unaffiliated shirt, kind of similar to like Fujita, like you mentioned. He was still a Young Lion, but he was wearing the TMDK shirt. He was starting to put some orange in his gear and slowly kind of transition out of being a Young Lion. So that seems like the same game plan that we're going to see here with Nagai, which I think he has a ton of charisma. But yeah, should he have a full-on excursion? Would that be better for him? I don't know.
It's always easy to be critical of whatever it is they do one way or the other. If they take their time building these guys, you say they need to be, getting them out there sooner. And if they start rushing them, then it's easy to say like, well, they're not following the process. I'm happy I'm not the booker, and I'm not the one who has to figure out what is best for each individual talent to get the most out of them. It's very clear that there's something there with this guy. I just hope my main thing is I personally don't know which is better. I'm not advocating and saying, oh, they're rushing him too soon. I'm also not saying that they need to slow roll him. Like I don't really know. I'm just hoping that we can have faith in management and in creative that they're going to do right by the guy and get the best out of him. That's the main thing here.
Yeah, and it did get a good reaction from the crowd when he did that at that angle, and they gave him the unaffiliated shirt. So, yeah, this could be a step in the right direction for him, and we'll see what the development stages to come out of this are.
Hell, maybe he'll have an effect on this fake LIJ team and kind of put his little stamp on it. Maybe start to shift it into whatever it is going to be.
Yeah. So then from there, the main card opened up. We had Evil, Ren Narita, Sanada, Kanemaru, and Yujiro defeating Bolton, Taguchi, Umino, Hanma, and Yuya Uemura. So again, a G1 preview here. Several of the guys in this match will be in G1. And we just had a bunch of shenanigans here and just felt like this was a way for House of Torture to kind of get some heat back after losing from the July 4th show.
Exactly.
Then following that, we had Hiromu, Shingo, and Tsuji defeating Hartley Jackson, Oiwa, and Zack Sabre Jr. Some funny interaction in this matchup between Hiromu and Hartley Jackson. And then towards the end, it was Tsuji hitting the Gene Blaster on Hartley to get the win. And then post-match, like we mentioned, we had the whole Daiki Nagai angle.
Yeah, I don't have much more to say here. I mean, a lot of this was a little bit of a rehash of what we saw the night prior. I think once we get to this fifth match of the night, that's where we start stepping into the business end of the card. But, you know, there's a little bit more notable and interesting things happening as a whole on this undercard in general. So that's positive.
Yeah. So the next up, we had Hiroshi Tanahashi's final road match up here against Tiger Mask 4, who was celebrating 30 years in wrestling. And I did see somebody just post a Tokyo Sports article. It sounds like July 2026. Tiger Mask is planning to retire, so he's also kind of winding down as well. And these guys both been in Hantai for a very long time, having a previous only one singles match prior. And Tanahashi, another singles match here, going up to 51, 28, and 2, his all-time, that was his Cork and Hall record, going up in this matchup here.
Yeah, I liked the match a lot. I know other people didn't necessarily love it, but I thought the fact that we've never seen these guys other than that one match, and keep in mind, I don't know if you said this, but it's July of next year. That
he's 2026.
Retiring. Yeah. Oh, okay, gotcha. But I thought the novelty behind the match was really cool. Newer fans, they just kind of see Tiger Mask in a particular light, but they're, it's easy to forget that he was at one time the highest pushed commodity in the junior division for, the mid 2000s when it comes to Hantai, kind of before like Fergal Devitt. And, he was a big star and very talented guy. And this is sort of like a throwback to that era with these two guys coming up around the same time and kind of hitting their zenith. Also, I really just love grumpy, mean kicks, Tiger Mask. The one thing is I liked that he's been wearing the black gear all throughout this tour, and he brought back out the blue furry joints, which is fine, but I would have liked to see mean mugging Tiger Mask with the black joints on, ready to fucking run it. But I thought the match was good. I think Tanahashi's looking very, very banged up and was a lot less mobile today than he had been 2 days ago. So, those big matches, they take a toll on his body for sure. I saw people mentioning that he was wobbling on the high fly flow, and I was like, he wobbles on every high fly flow. Like,
yeah,
he's never stable on that shit. But I enjoyed it. It wasn't like a stellar match, but Tiger Mask hit hard. The crowd really enjoyed it, and they worked hard. So, and Tanahashi won. So, yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it was a fun match. Big spot with Tiger Mask doing the big arm drag off the top to Tanahashi. I know he was definitely feeling that. later on. Then there was the Tiger Driver where it looked like he wasn't.
It looked like Tanahashi wasn't going to make it.
Right. I was like, oh man, it's about to be last bump.
He also, it was funny when he gave him that big arm drag off the top. That was like the lucha style arm drag. I was like, damn, that's such a huge fucking bump for him to take in this match at this juncture right before the G1. But then I thought about it and I was like, Ric Flair took that bump every single fucking night, even in his like old age in WWE, like even in the like mid 2000s, this man was still taking that bump. Like, I'm like, Tanahashi will be okay. You know, you take it on your side. It's fine.
Yeah. But yeah,
quarter bump.
Tiger Mask looked good. You know, big suicide dive as well. Had a lot of his signature moves throughout. And then towards the end, we got the Sling Blade and a high fly flow for the win. And good, you know, post match, you know, interaction with them hugging and you know, just kind of reminiscing and stuff there. Then we got to the G1 Climax 35 A Block Gauntlet match. So this match was announced with Goto being injured and being removed from G1. They decided to do this last chance gauntlet with the 4 guys who got eliminated from the other play-in matches. So it started off with 2 competitors, and we would have a random entrance after one person was eliminated. So the gauntlet started off. We had Chase Owens and Satoshi Kojima starting things off here, and Chase ends up getting the win, hitting a low blow, followed by the Last Testament, which is his package pile driver, and getting the win there and getting Kojima out of there. Then we had Taichi coming in, big crowd reaction, fans all behind Taichi, and you had Sonata coming in, jumping Taichi from the entrance, and of course, there's, you know, they were in just 4/5 guys together, and all throughout the match, Sonata's trying to help Chase cheat and get the win, but then you had Ishii running down to save his tag team partner, and eventually Taichi was able to get the pinfall on Chase with the Gato Clutch. And then you had the last match in the gauntlet, the tag team champions facing off, Taichi against Tomohiro Ishii, and this was a awesome closing stretch of this match, and it's exactly what you expect with these guys. Big chops, lariats, stiff kicks. Taichi was killing Ishii with the dangerous backdrop drivers. I was wincing every time Ishii got dropped on his head. You had the big axe boomas. You had the fighting spirit fire ups. You had each guy kind of doing each other's moves. Ishii did the Black Mephisto. He did the Last Ride power bomb. So a lot of really great back and forth. And till towards the end, you had Taichi hitting the Black Mephisto to get the pin on Ishii.
Yeah. One thing I noticed too on this match was they had Francesco Akira on commentary.
Yeah.
And there's one point where one of those dangerous suplexes, he was like, you know, Ishii, he has no neck, but it's also, he got dropped where the neck would be. It definitely didn't feel good.
Yeah. Akira's pretty good on commentary also. I enjoyed him the whole night.
You know, English isn't his first language, but I think he added something to the show, and he had some funny lines. There's one part during the Tanahashi match where he's like, you know, Tanahashi's going to retire soon, but don't be surprised if we see Tiger Mask 5 come out afterwards. And like, it was hard to understand what he's talking about. And Chris Charlton's like, oh, are you saying that after Tanahashi retires, someone who looks a lot like Tanahashi comes out in the Tiger Mask match? He's like, yes. He's like, there's hair poking out from underneath.
Yeah.
So I thought that was funny. Yeah, the Chase Owens Satoshi Kojima match, hot garbage. The Chase Owens Taichi match, hot garbage. Like, these were two things that just going through the motions very quick, you know, bomb, boom, it's over. But then you get Taichi and Ishii, and I easily think that their single isolated match of what it was the highlight of the entire show, including the main event, which we're going to talk about.
This should have been the main event. I almost forgot there was like 2 more matches after this.
Yeah, it was fucking phenomenal. And when you talk about high level G1 matches, this is what you sort of expect out of a high level G1 match, you know, on any given night. when these two guys are involved, this is the sort of performance that you could hypothetically be seeing. It reminds me a lot of last year's play-in when Yoshihashi and Ishii were opposite one another in the block or the brackets, and they had a match that arguably was as good, if not possibly better than almost anything that was in last year's G1, to kind of be like, yeah. And those two guys didn't get in. And it was almost like a little reminder, like, yeah, we're this fucking good and we can still go. And we're going to show you like what a real G1 match is like. That's what this was. But there's also, the added story elements. They're tag team partners. They're kind of both displaced recently with like the ending of Chaos, the ending of Just Five Guys. So they're sort of like outsiders, like looking for a spot, both older, both, on the outs. This is a last shot at glory to get into the G1, both very beloved and sort of overlooked underdog characters, like especially in Cork and Hall. There's just a lot going for them, and they're madmen, and they can work at such a fucking high level. And all the moves that you, kind of summarized for us, like does entail what they did. And they had, where was this? This was Corkin.
Yeah.
Yeah. They had Corkin fucking rocking, man. Like I was getting ready to tear my shirt. That's how this was great. Yeah. It was so great. And I didn't really care who won, but like I was kind of pulling a little bit more for Taichi because I felt like he should have been in the G1.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately it took the wrestler of the year in the company. Although I don't know, Desperado might be passing Goto up for that mantle, a little bit at this point. But the top guy in the company, it took him getting injured to make this happen. But yeah.
Yeah, and the crowd was awesome. Let's go Taichi, Ishii chants. Like there was like big dueling chants, and then at one point, like you just had like the both sides just like chanting at the same time, like Taichi, like they're like battling at each other, like cheering for both guys. And yeah, it was just awesome. So many great near falls, and it was awesome. Like I mentioned, I thought like this felt like the main event of this show. And I was like ready to turn it off. I was like, oh wait, yeah, there's 2 more matches after this.
Yeah, I saw people saying like, lobbying to cage match. They're like, can you please just classify these as 3 separate matches for ratings purposes? Because I don't want to give this many stars to Kojima and Chase Owens for the efforts they put in. And honestly, if you judge the thing as a whole, you kind of have to balance it out. And it's like, yeah, these guys had a well above 4-star match, and these guys had like a well below 3-star match. So, we're going to split the difference and give this shit 3.5. It's like where you really probably should fall. But this was incredible. Bro, yeah. Incredible.
So like, yeah, it was so awesome that it outweighs the bad. Like this is still 4-star plus, close to 4.5 level matchup.
It was really something. If you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend going to go watch Taichi and just fast forward the other 2 matches. You don't even need to bother with them. I'm so serious about this, but you need to see Taichi and Tomohiro Ishii. Really, really, really great stuff. And I'm looking forward to see what Taichi has in the G1. We're going to preview that next Monday with Chris. I'm sure we'll be tired from our trip, but we're going to do it. And it's going to be interesting because, like the narrative around Taichi is like almost everybody in Just Five Guys left and abandoned him and joined, heel factions, mostly Bullet Club factions. A lot of those guys are in House Torture now.
Yeah. And he kind of post-match promo and, talking about, how the mental and physical pain he's went through this year, not being in G1 last year and trying to scratch and claw his way here and finally found his way in. And so big crowd reaction. And yeah, I think he's in a block that needed him. And so I expect him to really kind of elevate the quality of that A block.
Here's a question I have for you, Jeremy. Were those real tears or not? Because I saw tears, but were those shoot tears or were those working tears? Because I saw tears, but I don't know which were they?
I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit of both. Because I mean,
well, it can't be a little bit of both. It either has to be what it can be is it can be a work turning into a shoot, or it can be a shoot turning into a work. You tell me which of those 2 do you think it was?
I'm gonna say a shoot turned into a work because this is a guy he's been very vocal about wanting to be in G1 and he was not going to be.
Or do you think he was shooting so hard that he started working and he started working so hard he turned it back into a shoot and it came full circle, which
I don't know, I think he was really touched by just the way the crowd reacted to him, because he got just superstar level reactions and response from the crowd, and even just the outcry. And like you mentioned earlier, like Yoshihashi lost, like there was no fan outcry. Like, man, like Yoshihashi should have been in G1 if he would have lost. But
there would have been outcry, but it would have been like, why the fuck did you put
Chase in?
Like
had if it was like Taichi versus Yoshihashi and Yoshihashi lost, or Oiwa beat Yoshihashi, like nobody would have been like, oh man, like Yoshihashi didn't get in. But when Taichi lost to Callum Newman, like people were like freaking out, and there was a great fan outpouring, and that just shows the type of connection that the New Japan office is not capitalizing on that Taichi has. And so hopefully this G1's a great.
I think they're missing the boat. They're missing the boat so bad with this guy. In other eras of New Japan, we knew he could go, but it was very clear at the top, like there's so many other top great workers that he's just one of many. And like, yes, he's underused, but it's such a crowded
right. You had Okada, Omega, Ibushi, Tanahashi, Jay White, Will Ospreay. Like, there wasn't
exactly
room for him.
Right. But then as people moved on, and it became very apparent that like he should be used in that aspect, especially following that feud that he had with Shingo, where both of those guys were like, we're not going to be at the top of the cards. So we're just going to fucking tear it up every single night and be the best thing going in the company. They, for whatever reason, and I don't know if it's like an age thing. I don't know if it's like a you came from All Japan thing, or if it's a you're ugly thing, because there are some people that look at him and they're like, he doesn't have matinee idol looks, or it doesn't have the perfect physique, or if it's not a top guy gimmick. I don't, or maybe even it's just the scumming, he was a scummer for so long and all that stuff. I don't know what it is, but somewhere along the line, someone in that company decided there's no money in this guy. And they were like, this is where, they said, it's not for you, baby. Like they put him in that box. And the crowd disagrees. And one of the things with being a promoter is giving the people what they want. And we've seen how that worked out this year with Goto. I'm not saying everybody needs to get that treatment, but I think that there are certain people that you never went with. The opportunity is there. You continue to not go with them. And the time frame is so small. The window is closing on a guy like Taichi. I'm not saying he needs to be world champion. I'm not saying I'm not saying go to the dome and have him win the fucking Rambo and all that, but I am saying like elevate him. It's long overdue that he be elevated and be used in a meaningful place to where he could be a drawing commodity in this company. And somewhere along the line, someone decided no. And you know what? They're fucking wrong. Mm-hmm. And this isn't like just because I like him because he can work really well. Because I'm not I love, Ishii's one of my all-time favorite guys, but I don't think you can just heat up Ishii and compel the audience to buy in and turn him into a drawing ticket. At least not anymore. I think that passed. Mm-hmm. But I think with Taichi, you could. I think that there is probably a market for him to be pushed in a meaningful way to a semi-top level role in this company, and for whatever reason they just won't do it. I think there's also, you could say the same things about Shingo probably, but there's also not this fervor behind Shingo that there is for Taichi.
Yeah, I think it's just listening to the crowd reactions and capitalizing on that. Like at Goto, he got those great reactions in the New Japan Cup finals and all those big moments. The crowd really wanted to see him succeed, and they did go with him. But same thing with Taichi. Like every time Taichi's in a big singles match or a big moment, the crowd's fully behind him. Let's go Taichi chants. Like it should say something that this crowd used to chant "Go home Taichi" legitimately to "Let's go Taichi" and are all in on this guy. Like they definitely should have been elevated him by now.
It feels like one of those things where people are like, they try to say someone's not over, and then when they get over, they're like, oh well, they're just over in the building.
Yeah.
What the fuck do you think over in the building means? Like they're over.
Right. It kind of feels almost like Bryan Danielson. Yes, like getting these huge, yes chants and reactions every week, and it's like, no, we can't, no, we can't push him.
Yeah, I mean, there was at the time when Hanma blew up, that was a little bit more of a tongue-in-cheek thing, but it also was like the efforts that he was putting forward, and he became this lovable underdog, and it eventually did build into him getting a push. Unfortunately, it was rear-ended by his injury and never really came back. But I think that there is a similarity there where it's like Taichi should be rewarded for the efforts he's put in. I think he's already at this current state in time. I think he's already past where Hanma was elevated to, but I think it's high time for him to be challenging for like white belts and shit like that and semi-main eventing. I wouldn't even be opposed to him getting a shot at the world title if the right story called for it. Test the waters, see if this. I'm not saying he should win the G1, but put him in a spot, give him a compelling story. I mean, you had the Sonata thing sitting right there, and they just dropped the whole fucking ball with it. Yeah, to both guys' detriment.
And now Zach is champion again. Come on, a Dangerous Tekkers world title match. That's money. That's money printed right there that they're throwing away.
If you, that is the one single solitary isolated in a situation where you could actually call for him to win that belt. I think he would have, and in my opinion, I don't think they will never do it, but if you ever went that way, he drops it immediately. I don't think he holds it for more than 30 days. I think you have him turn around and you drop that belt the very, very next, title defense. But what a moment that would be if he were to overcome Zack Sabre Jr., his former partner, and everything like that. The stories you could tell coming out of that would be immense.
Yeah. So that was the G1 Gauntlet. Taichi advances on into the A block. Then we go on to the semi-main event of the evening. IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Title match. The House of Torture team of Doki and Cho defeat Master Wato and Yo to retain the tag team titles.
This wasn't quite as it wasn't as bad as the title change match. This was almost kind of the comeuppance match where Wato and Yo, they'd already shown that, 2 nights prior that they were able to kind of figure out some of these guys' tricks, and they had some tricks of their own. So this was almost like the comeuppance match. They're the good guys coming in fired up with momentum and sort of giving a little bit back to Doki and Show what they had, giving them a taste of their own medicine and kind of overcoming some of their games. But ultimately, they were still able to, the House of Torturism still won out. They were still able to isolate these guys. They were still able to get the gimmicks in. The match was fine. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but if someone actually last week, I don't know who it was, but they mentioned listening to the show, and they're like, is the House of Torture stuff really this bad? You guys are going a little hard on it. And I'm like, bro, I'm done. It's been 5 years. I'm at my wit's end. I don't have any more in me. I do still love this product, and I'm not going to quit the show. And I hate being the person that has to complain about what is being put in front of us. But I would also, it'd be a disservice to everybody if I were to pretend like this is just normal and good and benefiting anybody, and I genuinely don't think it. I don't think. And that's another thing too, is there's always been this argument about House of Torture. It's well, it serves its purpose. At first it was well, it's to get heat for Naito. And then later it was well, it was for them to be set up so they could be the foils for top guys to defeat them, and then later it was well, they found they got de-elevated, and they kind of found the entertaining niche where they're undercard act and you can call upon them. And all of that was true. But as time goes on, now we're at a point where they're expanding and they're rising up in the ranks and they're taking over, and it's they have so many fucking members in the group, and everybody has a gimmick, and the company is literally becoming, when you watch a show, half of it is House of Torture. That's not even an exaggeration, or at least a third of it at minimum. I can't stomach it. It's terrible. This match was fine, but this was probably the best you could probably hope for when it comes to a House of Torture match, when we've already gotten so much of a dose of House of Torture all tour long. It's too much. I'm done with it. Doki and Show win. cool. I don't know. Maybe I sound like a Markish kind of, that like, I don't know what rant there is to go on about this. I'm shocked because I genuinely don't think this draws money. I don't think that there's a business incentive for this to actually, I know that they're on commentary, Chris Shelton's like, well, they sell a lot of shirts, Like, I don't, maybe that's true. But like the numbers, the overall attendance numbers seem to be dwindling, which tells me that this is not a hot act.
Yeah, and I feel like anytime they push them, it hasn't like reaped in great rewards of great, fan interest, turnaround, big houses, big gates or whatever. So yeah, I don't think this is a long-term act that should be continued to push. We had 3 different House of Torture matches up and down this card, and like you can only take so much. And you had all shenanigans here in this match, and they were working over Wato's previously injured knee, and Doki using the pipe on the knee and doing figure fours, and of course you had ref bumps and Yujiro and Dick Togo running in. You had Toru Yano trying to make a save there towards the end, but eventually they brought out a new gimmick, Josh. Not just the pipe and the wrench. They brought this like steel cookie sheet thing and hit those guys over the head with it, and then Doki hits the suplex de la Luna on Wato to get the pin.
So yeah, they the reign of the House of Torture Junior tag team of Sho and Doki continues.
Yeah. And I thought Akira made a lot of good points in this match. He was talking about, not believing that he would ever see Doki and Sho team, because it was literally just last year that these guys had that, that cage match, and there was this heated feud between them. And then he was talking about, Catch 2-2 and War Dogs and Jet Setters, all of them like worked super hard to make these titles reasonable. These titles mean something, and now we're back to the BS. And I know also he was kind of in character, but it's true. Like those teams really the last couple of years really helped elevate the junior tag team title, and also Ichiban Sweet Boys. And we had a lot of great defenses and title matches from those guys, and now we're reduced down to this crap.
Yeah, I'm not loving it. I keep in mind, it's not like New Japan is necessarily a tag team company, but these titles do serve a kind of important purpose for a division that often gets overlooked and sidelined. And it's one of the few things that the juniors can like kind of contest over when they're not actively involved in the title picture scene. And it's a great way for most of the major cards to have a flare of, excitement and entertainment. And don't get me wrong, I understand it's pro wrestling. It's a story. It is theater. It is good guys and bad guys. My whole thing with it, though, is this. At some point, when you introduce a bad guy act, and I know we're in a different era, but at some point, the good guys have to get the comeuppance to a degree where the bad guys ultimately are done. They lose and they go away. And I'm not saying those humans need to go away, but the idea and the concept of whatever it is, it can't just be an eternal struggle between, Hantai and House of Torture unending until someone decides to retire or that it's not satisfying. One of these big major defeats that have taken place for House of Torture should have been the end of House of Torture as we know it, because the one thing that we have seen in this company is that, yes, it can be very difficult to get a hot commodity started when it comes to like something that's either a face or a tweener group to really endear themselves and garner the fans like interest and stuff, but it's not that hard to raise up a heel unit. New Japan's had heel units going back to the 80s time and time again, but eventually, the shelf life on these things wear out, and these guys aren't going away. In fact, they're growing. And I'm like, where in the narrative is this going to stop?
Yeah.
I don't think it is.
Yeah, and they had a great out with the whole dog pound cage match. Like that should have been losing team disbands, and that should have been the end of House of Torture. But yeah,
very likely it should have been, and it's not going to be. And don't get me wrong. Again, I'm not saying don't have heels. I'm not saying don't have gimmicks. I'm not saying don't have interference ever. But when you're when it becomes a crutch, that is what the booking and the agenting is just completely leaning on, and it's oversaturating the product, you start to miss what made the company the popular entity that it was to begin with, and now you're reshaping what the entire style of professional wrestling is that they do. And some people might say that is an over exaggeration, and to some extent it probably is, because it's not like we're seeing it in every facet of the card, but you don't have to just have it at the top of the card. If it's all over the card and it's always in your face, the saturation of it, the volume of it becomes overwhelming. It's like, fuck, there's so much of this, like, and I hate this. And then you don't want to watch the product.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really bad. So more House of Torture to come with Doki and Sho retaining the titles. Then we get into the main event, the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title match. El Desperado retains by defeating the Best of Super Junior winner, Kosei Fujita, in 19 minutes and 32 seconds.
I really, really enjoyed this match a lot. I thought that the Korakuen crowd was really into this and super hyped. This had sort of like that, Korakuen doesn't always have like a big fight feel because, the presentation is the presentation. It's Korakuen, you know what I mean? But in its own way, when a big main event match is taking place there and the crowd is hyped for it, that's something special too. And that's what this had going for it. And, Despi came out, dressed for the occasion in the white and the red. I really liked his fit. And I was very torn. I didn't know who was going to win here. I could see, why they might potentially go with either guy at this point. With Despi, he is on this very lengthy at this point and successful title reign where he has multiple defenses. And with every single one of those, he's starting to creep up into the, setting like records kind of territory. And at the same time, it is the junior title. This is a title that switches hands a lot. And it did seem like Fujita is primed to take the next step up. He won the Super Juniors. The crowd's really behind him. You don't want to miss that opportunity. And they could have gone either way. Ultimately, Desperado did retain the title with a numero dos, but almost like it was the numero dos, but the angle he had on it, the way he was grasping the wrist, he's done variations of this, but this was almost like kind of a nastier, more definitive version of like the numero dos than he typically does, which I thought was pretty cool. And I saw a lot of backlash. The match itself, fantastic. And I thought Fujita looked great. Could I go as far as to say that this was a quote unquote star making performance? Did I think that he was so good in losing that it was like a, for instance, like a Kenny Omega at Wrestle Kingdom, when did he 10?
Oh,
was it like, or I'm sorry, 11
against Okada.
Yeah. Like, was it a situation like that where it's like, he looked so good in defeat that's like, holy shit, he's the guy. I don't know if it was like that. I think he looked really, 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 really great, but I don't know if at the end of it, I came off thinking like he's the guy. Honestly, I came out of it being like, man, he's so fucking good, but he still can't beat Despi. Despi's still the man. Which I don't know. Maybe that's what they want. A lot of people are complaining about this because, there's this narrative about the shape New Japan is in, the lack of risks they've been taking, the lack of cohesion with the creative. And then you have this kind of shining beacon when it comes to Kosei Fujita, and they think it's time. And this is a situation where I will take a step back and say, I actually don't know, and I don't envy whoever it is his job to make these kind of determinate calls. I know that we all want to err on the side of let's blame the company because things aren't necessarily going well right now. You're seeing a wide range of what are seemingly bad decisions, and you could just pile this on top of that and chalk it up. But I also wonder, like, I don't know. Despy is literally he's at the top of the company. They just lost Goto. We keep saying that they need stars, and he is kind of one of the very tip top stars that they have. Maybe now's not the time to have him lose the title, especially if, okay, yes, you want Fujita to win. That's great. But then we're going right into G1. Do you want to crown a guy, make him, and then cool him down for 2 months before you're ready to like actually even bring him back on screen? That's also part of like, well, maybe they shouldn't have delayed this match from back in June. It should have happened in Dominion, and maybe he could have had a title defense by now if they were planning to even do a title change. But since it happened here, the timing is a little stranger than it would have been if the match happened in June. But if there might be that thing where they're trying to build up Despy for something, to set records, to really establish his name in those books and take him to an even higher level than he already is, to make his name as like a tip top guy in this company. So that might be part of it. There's also the thing where it's like, maybe Fujita's ready. Maybe he's not. And I think it's really hard to know when a person is 100% ready for, right now again, this is just an illusion. I'm doing the thing with Tanahashi, right? We're doing Tanahashi Ace of the Universe, and like in 04, company's in piss poor shape. And they choose Tanahashi on 2 occasions that year to challenge for the IWGP title, like right in the heat of Inokiism. And it's like, this guy's like on fire. He's ready for it, is what people are thinking. And he loses both times. And it was not to his detriment. Like, he really actually legitimately wasn't truly ready for the spot. And it wouldn't be another like 2 years before he got the title. And sometimes you do miss the mark, but sometimes like you do need to slow cook these guys. And I know people don't want to hear that. Mm-hmm. And I don't know which one it is. I don't know if they are missing the mark here, and maybe this is the point where they should be pulling the trigger, and it's easy to just criticize it. Or maybe they know things that we don't know when it comes to Fujita, where it's like, yeah, he's almost ready, but oftentimes in wrestling, guys don't win on their first challenge. Isn't this his second challenge now?
Yeah, it's the second time he challenged Despy earlier this year.
Yeah, which is like, and maybe that's another reason why you might want to say like, yes, he should win because it's the rematch. But him losing to Despy twice kind of really does establish long-term that this is this big obstacle that he just cannot overcome yet. And we've seen this kind of story play out many times where there's a goal in mind for somebody where they just can't get past them. And then later when they finally do, that's like the crowning moment, the crowning achievement. And hopefully, I mean, I'm not of the opinion that they have missed the mark on this guy. I'm of the opinion that they have enough faith in him that they're going to continue to build him up, and that this wasn't their one shot. Like it had been, like the way people felt about Wato, where they're like, that was it. They should have done it and they didn't do it. I don't feel that way. I think that we're okay. Even if it would have been okay to pick Fujita, I'm okay with them going in on Despy in a desperate time when the timing's not 100% perfect, and setting him up as this goal for Fujita, and maybe, still going with Fujita later on after they've given him a little bit more seasening.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's very different. It's a damn if you do, damn if you don't situation. It's like, yeah, do you take the red pill and keep it on Despy, keep him as champion? He's a top star, he's a top draw. He's had that crazy match with Jun Kasai. Do you lean into that and try to, continue to draw these Corkin houses that he's been main eventing a lot this year with him as champion? Or you do the blue pill and you try and make Vegeta a star right away and have him beat Despy and push him? And you just don't know what's going to happen either way. I think going with Desperado is probably the safer bet, because he's a proven star and draw, and the company needs that right now with Goto going down and them not having a true ace right now. So I get that decision. On the other hand, too, would it have been cool to push Vegeta? This time last year, the same exact show last year is when Doki beat Despy, and it wasn't right before G1, but Doki came back after G1 and had great defenses all throughout the fall and winter going into the Tokyo Dome. Could they have followed that same pattern with Fujita. Maybe.
What show was that on where Doki won?
This exact show last year, the last night of New Japan Seoul last year.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Actually, well, it would have been the Budokan show, Tokyo Budokan show last year. So second last show. Doki beat Despi on New Japan Seoul. So similar timing. And so that worked out for Doki. Maybe it could have worked out for Fujita, but we just don't know. But like you mentioned, like his crowd, he did have good crowd reaction, but it wasn't to the point of where I felt like he is so over. It wasn't like the Gabe Kidd thing where it's like he's so over. They blew it like he should have won. Like he had a great reaction. Obviously, the Corcoran crowd loves underdogs, and we're behind him and wanted to see him pull the upset. But it wasn't this visceral reaction of like, all right, he is like locked in, and they should go with him. So from that standpoint, it doesn't feel like a mistake. And also, like you mentioned, like watching the match again, good match, but I don't feel like he had this match. This wasn't a match of the year level match, and it wasn't like, oh my gosh, he broke out. He had this incredible performance. Like Tanahashi's crying, everybody's crying. Like this is throwing money, flowers. Like it wasn't that. It was another chapter in this rivalry. It was a very good match. Definitely working over the knee all throughout the match, and Vegeta having to sell and try to use his high flying, try to use his saberism and do his submission holds onto Despi, but in the end, just not being able to overcome that. And like you mentioned, Despi really trapping the arms differently in that numero dos. It looked something like Zach would do, and Zach was watching from the rafters. They did like zoom in on Zach post match once Fujita lost, so that was kind of a little interesting wrinkle there. But yeah, ultimately this again was Vegeta is just not ready to topple Despi, and like you said, I think it's okay in this situation because the other elements weren't lined up like a Gabe Kidd where it's like crowd reaction, match
Now's
performance, like everything's clicking. Like we should go with him. I don't think everything quite clicking there yet for Vegeta. So I think this will end up being fine. And he's still young. There's plenty of time for him to win the belt and make records and do stuff like that. So I'm not completely worried. That
was going to be my last point. It's like people kind of forget, this guy's 22 years old. It might be different if he was in that system for a very long time. And, he had 6 years or 7 years under his belt. Like if he was in a similar situation like Tsuji or something like that, that might be a little different. The guy's 22 right now.
Right. Yeah, he'll be 23, I think, in a week or so, they said.
So it's like, maybe the company is in need to start pushing some younger stars. That's true. But he is not in need of this win to make or break his career right now. If you have faith in this guy that he's going to be around for a while and has the goods, he's not going anywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They didn't geek him out. So I'm not worried about it because I have faith in, as much as I don't personally have faith in what's going on with the company right now and creative, I have faith in Fujita as a performer that he will continue to get better and get more over. And I think Despi is the hot hand right now. And you kind of go with the hot hand in a situation like this.
Yeah. And I think it's also different too, because as a junior, like there's only so much that you could do as a junior ace. And it's like, if we put the belt on him already, he already won the tournament. Like he's going to end up almost in that Liger Hiromu trap where it's like, they're just continue to, and obviously those guys are big stars, but even after a point, it's like, man, like Liger could be doing more. Hiromu could be doing more, and they don't. And it's like you give him all this stuff right away, he can easily end up in like, all right, Vegeta's won the tournament 5 years in a row. He's been the champion 6 times. Like let's do, what else can we do with him? And so I think it's okay as a junior to kind of slow roll and build it up.
There's also the aspect of it where the flip side of what you just said was where it's like, as a junior, there's only so much you can do. And this is right now Desperado's 5th IWGP junior title reign. And it's by far the longest. The other two, that his first and second reign were both pretty lengthy, but this one has passed both of those. And he's got a lot more defenses than he did in those matches. And it's like, once he does lose, I'm not saying he'll never be a player or anything, but he'll very likely start stepping into a similar role and situation to like where Hiromu and Kushida did, where it's like, well, what do we do with them next? So do you want to cash out on a guy like this when he's in the middle of a hot run? I don't know if that's the wise and prudent decision. The only criticism that I can agree with is people saying, well, who else can he beat? He's beaten everybody. And that's where I'm kind of racking my brain. I'm like, what do you do with this guy next at this point? That's true. He's beaten most. I mean, looking at his title record reign, it's like he won the title from Doki, he beat Ishimori, he beat Fujita, he beat Francesco Akira, he beat Clark Connors, Templario, Jun Kasai, and Fujita. So, like, who is really left in the division that's a main player that he hasn't beat? I guess, he hasn't run back Hiromu yet, and that seems like that's probably not far off.
Yeah.
But after that, what's left?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, there's always a Kushida you can go back to for a match there.
And that's the thing. You kind of have to dust off old Kushida.
I mean, maybe you bring in Kevin Knight for a defense.
And that's where you're wondering, like, how far do we take this? Like, are we looking to break the all-time defense? Are we looking to beat Heat's record or not?
Yeah.
And that my thing is, I think that if you do put this title on Fujita, right, if that's the goal and that's the aim, maybe do it on a bigger show, bigger moment, bigger crowd, really go full bore. I feel like having had done the change in Cork and Hall, as cool as that is, it's not necessarily like the star making sort of thing that it could be.
Yeah, it's not like it was the Osaka Joe Hall or the Tokyo Dome. Like there are bigger venues, Sumo Hall. There are bigger, more traditional venues that could have made the title win even bigger.
I agree. I'm looking at and we'll wrap it up here because we're done with the review. But I'm looking at who else. I mean, obviously there's Doki, so he's got Doki still on the docket. Hiromu. You mentioned Kevin Knight and Kushida. He hasn't wrestled Wato. And there is Robbie Eagles. And then, of course, there's like the other like House of Torture guys like Sho and, there's Yo. So, I mean, there are names, but not all of those are top-notch, top-flight names necessarily. I think the biggest names that he hasn't wrestled would be like Eagles, Doki in the rematch, and Hiromu.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're and then, some of those like Francesco Akira, he could wrestle Francesco Akira again, probably. So, I mean,
yeah, and there's
looking at those
similar story where Akira's trying to chase and beat him.
I think that they have, as much as people don't want to hear it, I think they do have enough names and juice to carry this thing further than people are probably expecting, He's 4 defenses away right now from tying the all-time record, and he's 5 away from breaking it.
Yeah, and I mean, like you mentioned, G1's coming up, so that's some time they're gonna be able to save. July, August, they don't have to worry about that, and come back with September with somebody, and then it's only a few months away from there to get to January.
And who knows? You send them to Forbidden Door, have them defend that shit in some sort of like 3-way, 4-way with a bunch of no hopers, rack up another win.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we didn't, do the news this week. We didn't take questions. So, I mean, we're pretty much out of here. I thought we were going to keep it a little short. We still went 2.5. So, gave the people their money's worth. I don't have anything else to cover before we go here, Jeremy.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. There weren't really any other news items, and we didn't have time to grab questions before we recorded. So that's gonna wrap it up. Next week we'll be back to record with Chris Samsa, our traditional annual G1 Climax preview. So make sure you come back next week and check that out. Chris, of course, will have all the good stats, and we'll break down A and B block and try to give our thoughts on who could potentially win the thing, who's going to the final. So be sure to check that out next week. and check out everything that's going down on the Patreon. Tanahashi Ace of the Universe, lots of episodes available now. I'm working on the next episode of Dominion Deep Dive, so lots of great stuff on the Patreon to check out. And remember, we'll be in Texas this coming up weekend, so if you see us, come say hi, and stay tuned to Discord for more details to come for what we'll be doing that weekend. And that's going to wrap it up. So remember, if you want to watch our show live or listen without ads, sign up at patreon.com/KI Strong Style. You can also make a donation by visiting socialbooks.com/donate. On the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure you connect with us on social media on X and Blue Sky. Follow us at KI Strong Style, at socialbooks, at Jeremy L. Donovan, at YB_Josh and Liger. On Facebook, follow us at facebook.com/socialbooks and the Wrestling Square Circle Facebook group. On Reddit, I'm the Pro Black Guy, also Keeping It Strong Style. On YouTube, we're at Social Suplex. You can join our Social Suplex Discord server to interact with us and other wrestling fans. You can email me, Jeremy, at socialsuplex.com. Check out all the other shows that we have here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd. All Things Elite with Floyd and Austin. Imps, WWE Adventure with Implications Matthew Mayer. Wrestling Art with Chris Things. Tunnel Talk with Ali and Aaliyah, and the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review, and we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Ichiban.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.